America's favorite place to watch football is Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Catch all the biggest games at a viewing experience built for sports fans. Chill in one of their 6 pools on 3 different levels for a perfect view of their massive screen. Plenty of seating options from cozy daybeds to private, temperature-controlled cabanas. Stadium Swim. Book your spot today at circalasvegas.com.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
Stephanie Smile is like a white woman in a Mexican restaurant. Please, she just told the waitress, gracias. Hun, did you hear me? I got the corn tortillas.
Right. Rich Craich.
Jesus Christ, log off and go to work. What are you doing? And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what's happening? How are you?
Right. I'm doing better than Jerry West. So that's
yeah,
good.
they're it's not good. Not good for former. There was a long time, and I think it was before. It may have been before Bill Russell passed away, where there was Wilt Chamberlain passed away. What, in the 90s? I forget what year. Sometime in the early to mid 90s. I forget the exact year.
Many years ago.
Yeah, I should know. But from that point until Bill Russell died, like, every NBA MVP was still alive. Wilt Chamberlain was the only NBA MVP that had died. Now, people might say, what about George? They didn't have the MVP when George Mikan was around or when some of those other guys were around. So you have it basically from the 60s on, and one guy out of that entire crew had passed away, and that was Wilt Chamberlain, who obviously passed away, you know, at a relatively young age. You would assume that Wilt Chamberlain could have and should have lived for a couple more years, but obviously had many heart issues and that sort of stuff. So he passed away. But there was a long time where that was it. And then Russell died, and it was like, oh, all right, well, we're adding one to there, and Wilton Russell, that's it. And, man, we got Walton and West that are dropping like flies. Kareem, we got to put Kareem in a bubble. We can't have Kareem going because I know there was some health issues that he had pretty recently as well. But I think we're hitting that point now finally where these guys are getting in their 80s and 90s, and they're going to start, unfortunately, passing away a lot more frequently. But, yeah, Jerry West, that's an all-timer right there, man. That is an all-time NBA legend, both on the court and in the front office, man. They don't make them like Jerry West, man. They don't.
Chamberlain died in 99.
99. Okay, so that's a little later than I thought. But, yeah, so that's a long time. Again, because Russell passed away, 2 years ago, I think? 2 years ago at this point?
A couple years ago. And we talked about Bill Russell when he died here, too. But, yeah, actually, Jerry West never won an MVP. I mean, I get the point you're making.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm just bringing up like that. Yeah, the generations of fans. And then people in the chat room were mentioning Kobe as well. But I didn't. Yes, Kobe had passed away, but he was like obviously a tragic thing. But yes, he does count as well with this. I was more bringing up the point of like guys that were dying of old age and other stuff. But yes, Kobe also passed away.
Well, if you look at the list of the point you're making, if you look at the list of NBA MVPs, between Chamberlain, all of them were alive with the exception of Chamberlain for something like 20 years or something like that. And a lot of that is the NBA as a league isn't as old as some of these other leagues. So, you know, and as you said, the MVP award didn't even exist for the entirety of the NBA. So now we're getting to the point, like you said, where a lot of these guys are in their 80s. And some of the Bob Cousy, he's got to be in his well into his 90s. Bob
Cousy, yeah. I think he's 90. Oh man, what is he? He's 94, 95, somewhere in that range.
He's alive though. He's alive, and
he is alive.
I don't know if he was an MVP either, but you know that's another NBA legend and all-time legend and Hall of Famer. But yeah, Jerry West, I think he finished second for the MVP like 5 times.
Right, which is kind of the Jerry West experience. Is he was very good at finishing second for a lot of things, unfortunately.
Yeah, what did he lose?
7.
He lost 8 or 9 He lost 7 finals.
So 7 in a, I think it was, how many was it in a row? It was a horrific.
I think he lost 8 or 9 finals. Wasn't it,
he
altogether?
did lose. Yeah, they weren't all in a row. He lost. I forget how many in a row he lost, but he did lose. I think in totality 7 or 8 NBA finals, which is real rough.
Now he did win one in 71-72.
He did get one.
That was the Laker team that won. How many games in a row they won?
26, I believe.
Yeah, they went. That 72 Laker team went 69-13.
Yep.
That was the team where Elgin Baylor retired in like the first week of the season, and he had gone his whole career again without winning a title on all those Laker teams. His career actually started in Minneapolis with the Minneapolis Lakers, all-time great player. He retired early in that 72 season, but that Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West team finally won a championship in 72. West also won an Olympic gold medal in, I want to say 60 with Oscar Robertson. He was a contemporary of Oscar Robertson. They came in the league the same time. I think they were in the same draft. They were neck and neck in college. Jerry West went to West Virginia. He was, that's when West Virginia was really humming. He came 4 or 5 years after Hot Rod Hundley was a star at West Virginia. And he left right before Rod Thorne, who was another guy who was, not nearly the player Jerry West was, but became a great executive too in his own right. Rod Thorne drafted Michael Jordan, right?
Correct. Yep.
Right. And then went on and, he was an executive with the Nets. He was an executive. Yeah. He spent many years in the NBA, but West Virginia in the late 50s, early 60s, from Hot Rod Hundley to Jerry West to Rod Thorne. And in fact, when West got drafted by the Lakers in 60, the team, Hot Rod Hundley was on that Laker team.
Yes, he was. Yep.
And they were both stars at West Virginia. And the head coach, Fred Shows, or whoever you pronounce his name, he was the head coach at West Virginia during Hundley's time and for at least a year or two at West as well. So West got drafted into a very comfortable setting, even though he was going cross country to LA. He had his old head coach. He had Hot Rod Hundley on the team. And, and then you go from there. I mean, West basically played in the finals practically every year of his career.
Yeah, so I have all of them right here. So here you go. 1962, NBA Finals, lost to Boston. 1963, NBA Finals, lost to Boston. 1965, he got a 1-year break. Lost to Boston. 1966, lost to Boston. 1968, lost to Boston. 1969, lost to Boston. And then the biggest gut punch, 1970, finally, all right, great. The Celtics are gone. We don't have to worry about the damn Celtics anymore. 1970 NBA Finals, Game 7, they lose to the New York Knicks. And then finally, mercifully, 1972, he did win an NBA Final. But people kind of forget about this. They came back the next year and lost to the Knicks again. So they played the Knicks in 1970, 1972, and 1973. Won one of those, lost the other two. But I think a lot of people forget that once that monkey got off his back and once the monkey got off the Lakers' back when they finally won a title, they came back the very next year, but not much of a series at all. The Knicks beat them in 5 games.
Yeah. And and he was a couple years away from retirement at that point.
Yeah.
And one of those series to the Knicks, I forget which one, West hit a game-tying half-court shot, and then they went on to lose that game and lose the series. But that was before the three-point shot. They would have won the game if the three-point shot existed. But he tied the game because it was
1970. That was in 1970. If you're
that was in 70.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
he hit a half-court shot, and it was like, all right, cool. 2 points, and it's like shit. All right, if he hits that,
I think they lost that game in overtime, right?
Yeah.
And then he won a Finals MVP on the losing side, which is the only time that's ever happened. I think the only other time in sports was when Randy White won the Super Bowl MVP for the Cowboys. One of those years when they lost the Super Bowl. I think those are the only 2 players to win the MVP of their finals or their championship game or whatever the appropriate on the losing side.
Yeah.
But
no, that was 1969 that he did it, and that is probably the biggest heartbreaker for his career because they went to 7 games. against the Celtics. They had a great team that year, 1969 Lakers, and he had, Joe, here were his averages in the NBA Finals, the game that he lost in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. 37.9 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 7.4 assists, shooting nearly 50% from the field. I mean, there's not much more you can do. And that's why, even in loss, they said, fuck, here you go, man. You didn't win. You lost your 6th or whatever NBA Finals to the Celtics. Here you go. Here's the Finals MVP. And I think he talked about how he just saw that thing and threw it on the ground. It was like, fuck this shit. I don't want this. The hell do I need this for?
Yeah.
Just so annoyed. And it was Jerry West. He was never the most happy guy in the world. But you'd imagine the anger after, getting to the Game 7 of the NBA Finals after averaging nearly 40 points in the entire series and still losing, and them saying, here you go. Here's this trophy. He's like, fuck off. I don't want this stupid thing.
Well, yeah, he had so many gut punch losses. I mean,
terrible.
Look at all those finals losses. Look at all those runners up to the MVP. And, I believe it was 69-70 that Chamberlain, tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
And West had a monster year. I mean, he averaged over 30 points a game. And I think they gave the MVP to Willis Reed. He probably should have won MVP that year.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have Wilt Chamberlain. They went to the finals, despite that. And West was just out of his mind, great that year, carrying the team. Elgin Baylor had to be in his mid to late 30s by 1970 because he retired 2 years later. And really, he barely played the following 2 years because Baylor was so banged up. That's why he retired at the start of the 72 season. So the 70 season would have been the last full season for Elgin Baylor, and Chamberlain blew out his ACL. So that team was just carried on Jerry West's back. I don't even know who else would have been on that team. Maybe Happy Hairston or I don't think Pat Riley or any, he's
60. Are you talking about 1960? Or 69, 70. Yeah, who was on that one?
It would have been Happy Hairston for sure.
Yeah.
But the point is not, without Chamberlain and Baylor, Baylor probably has his last full season, but he was older, and Chamberlain only played a few games. And so if you're going to argue for one of those second place MVP, my point is that's the year West probably should have won MVP.
Yeah.
He carried that Laker team on his back. But yeah, I'm now that I'm looking at it, he had 4 second place MVP finishes, which is just crazy that he couldn't get one. And the other thing about Jerry West that people might not realize, one of the greatest defensive players of all time.
Oh, great.
Because the all NBA, the all defensive team again didn't exist until towards the end of his career. And then he was a first team all NBA, first team all defensive team NBA practically every year that the award existed that he was in the league. So, he was one of the best defensive players ever, obviously a great scorer, considered to have one of the best shooting touches in NBA history, noted for his quick release on his jump shot in college. Again, won the gold medal with Oscar Robertson on that 1960 Olympic team. So he had his share of winning. He won the gold medal. He did win one NBA championship. And, basketball is the one team sport where the Olympic gold medal really means the most. Nobody cares about baseball Olympic medals. In soccer, it's the World Cup takes priority over the Olympics. Basketball, for whatever reason, that Olympic tournament means a lot. And it has always meant a lot, and that's why America, the USA was, that's why they totally, when they lost in that team that John Thompson coached in 88.
88, yeah. 88.
When they won the bronze in 88, that's why America took that so personal and decided, okay, now we're going to own this shit. And they sent the pros, the dream team in 92. Now, eventually the rest of the world caught up, and it's not nearly the lock that it was for 15, 20 years there, where America was just going to the way that the women's team basically does now. But that's how it was for, 3 or 4 Olympics there with the American team.
Yeah, 92, 96, and 2000 were all just complete laughers. And they had a little bit of a trip up in 2004. Obviously, they were, but it was like, okay, I don't know if these guys are quite. And then they all brought it back in the Redeem team or whatever you want to call it in 2004. Obviously, that did not work. But then in 2008, you get the Redeem team where it's like, okay, let's get serious again. And then you have LeBron and Carmelo and Kobe and all those guys, and that's when they just went to town again for the next couple of Olympic cycles. But now we've reached a point again, like we did in 2004, where there are guys out there that are really, really good. There's other teams that are out there that are really, really good. And yeah, the USA is going to have a real tough time this Olympic cycle to win again. I mean, they have a good team, but not a great team. So I think if you're interested in watching Olympic basketball, this is going to be another very exciting year. It's not going to be like the 2008 Redeem Team or the 1992 Dream Team or whatever. It's going to be a real competitive run, I think, through the entire Olympics for USA.
Yeah, and then West, there's that forget as a player, then there's a whole other element of where he's just an incredible executive, the GM for both Laker dynasties, and putting both of those, especially the Kobe Shaq team, which he drafted Kobe Bryant obviously, and then brought in Shaq and was he there for the Kobe Gasol teams? Was that him too, or was that that I can't remember? I
think by that point you're looking at Mitch Kupchak. I'd have to double check that. I think he's gone by then. I think the weight
he
of
was
the
with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, because he had gone to the Grizzlies. I think by that point, by the time you get the Gasol era.
Yeah, but he put together two of the Laker dynasties. So as a front office / GM / executive, so. Just a legendary figure in the sport. And if you wanted to argue one of the top 5 all-time figures in the NBA, you could certainly do that. I wouldn't put many people ahead of him at all. Maybe just Jordan, Bird, Magic in terms of players, then maybe David Stern. The list is short. Maybe Red Auerbach, maybe. But West was a player and an executive, so it's tricky. So he was 86 years old, and he wasn't, it was only that last year, from what I understand, where he was in terrible health.
Yeah.
Because he looked
fine. He looked fine a couple years
ago.
ago. Yeah, they did the NBA 75.
Yeah.
He looked okay. And every time he'd pop up, you're like, Jerry West looks pretty good for himself for being in his 80s.
Well, he was still sharp and into it, because you remember that whole Chris Russo, JJ Redick thing on First Take, where Redick was calling all the old players plumbers and all that bullshit.
Yeah, all that dumb shit.
Jerry West was irate at that, and he was calling into the NBA radio on Sirius, and he was calling into the ESPN shows, basically just tearing into Redick for the disrespect that he was showing towards a lot of the older players. So that wasn't that long ago. That was only a year or two ago. So that's what I mean. Like, West was still sharp, I guess, or how would you say, of sound mind up until very recently. But I was listening to a lot of stuff on him earlier today on some different outlets. And over the past few months, the people close to him kind of knew that the end was nearing. But, this wasn't some kind of, he hasn't been dying for a half decade. He hasn't been suffering or anything like that. He was still out there doing his thing not that long ago, and popping up on radio shows and things like that. But like you said at the top, a lot of these NBA legends now are starting to, time waits for no one. They're getting old, Rich.
Yeah.
The guy was 86 years old.
Yes, he was. Bill Walton, obviously a little bit more of a surprising death, because he was a little bit younger. And you talk about a guy who was of sound mind and stuff. I mean, Walton felt, even like you said, a year ago was fine, was still doing commentary. I think, did he do commentary this last season for college or no?
He started to wind it down, and the thing with Walton is he told almost no one he was dying, but he knew he was dying. So,
which is perfectly Bill Walton too. That's exactly the way that Bill Walton would go, absolutely. Is not tell anybody and then just slowly pass away and just kind of not have all the attention on him and all that sort of stuff. That's perfect Bill Walton for sure.
Yeah, he wouldn't. Yeah, no doubt about it. So he disappeared, but no one really thought too much of it because there was no news. And then towards the very, very end, he started calling people and letting them, people that were super close to him and letting them know. But he's another one. I mean, Bill Walton. I mean, we could do a half hour on him.
Oh, God, just his college. You could do a half hour just on his fucking college run where that guy has to follow Kareem, you know what I mean, at UCLA. Like, imagine being another big man and having to go to UCLA in the footsteps, in the shadow of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then saying, fuck it, and doing better than Kareem did at UCLA. Yeah. It's fucking insane.
Outplay, yeah. Right. I mean, I know I'm going to botch it, but I think Bill Walton didn't lose a single game from his sophomore year in high school until he graduated, until like his first year in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right.
Like something, like these guys didn't lose a game. Like, just utterly ridiculous. But Bob Cousy's 95.
Yeah, I think he's about to turn 96 here very, very soon. So, yeah.
And he was, in fact, he was the 1956-1957 MVP.
Was he the inaugural? Was that the first year they did it?
That I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, that I don't
No,
know.
it wasn't, because I'm looking at
Because
now.
Bob
He
Pettit
finished
won it 1 year
third.
too. I don't know if Pettit was before.
I think 56 was the first year, because Kuzi finished third, and he would have placed the years prior, but he didn't. So I'm guessing 56 was the first year then.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? Because his best year was 55. and he
Yeah.
didn't even-
If they had the MVP, Bob Cousy was probably going to be a part of the voting for
He
a
would have
couple
finished
years.
top
there.
10 all of those years.
Right. I want to say
So the
Bob
first
Pettit
year-
was the inaugural MVP, if I remember correctly.
I can tell you right now, I have the page up. Yeah, it's Bob Pettit,
Yep.
1950s.
Still alive, by the way.
56.
91 Bob
And
Pettit.
he's another one still alive. That's right. Yeah. That's your point. Like, a lot of these guys, all of them were still alive with the exception of Chamberlain for a very long time. And now, they're starting to fall. So, Jerry West, the latest, one of the greatest basketball minds of all time, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And, I assume most people who even remotely follow the NBA know he is the logo.
He's the
that
freaking
silhouette
logo.
on the NBA logo is Jerry West driving the basketball. And I think on Walt Clyde Frazier, is it Walt Clyde
it's
Frazier
like
he's driving the basketball?
it's a magazine cover or something like that, or
like Sport Magazine or something like that.
Yeah,
me see
and
if I
I
can find
believe it's Walt Frazier. I that's how I remember it in my head. I don't know if I've Mandela affected that, but I'm almost positive that's who it is.
I feel like it was a Nick, and Frazier would be guarding him. So, let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, that I don't remember off the top of my head. I've created it in my mind. It's either Oscar Robertson or Walt Frazier, and I don't remember which one it is. Because it might be Oscar. I think it actually might be Oscar now
It'd
that
be
I'm
fitting if it was Robertson. It'd be
Yeah.
fitting. It was, but let's see. I can't find it. It's
Yeah, I
gonna take all
can't.
day.
Yeah, that's fine.
But no, you're right. No. Wait. It might be Oscar Robertson, because I found that magazine, Sport Basketball.
Cincinnati Royal, right?
67,
Cincinnati
68,
Royal.
and it's
Oscar
a
Robertson.
Royal.
Yeah, that's
so
Oscar
It's
Robertson.
got to be Oscar Robertson. I think that's the photo. If that's the photo, the silhouette's
that's
based
it,
on it.
yeah.
I think it is.
I'm
That's
pretty
it. It's Oscar Robertson.
Yeah.
You're right. So you go, which is fitting. It's more fitting than Clyde Frazier.
Sure.
That it would have been Oscar Robertson. But anyway, that's a brief obit, I guess, of Jerry West. I mean, dude, 2 hours on Jerry West, easy.
Let's do it.
With,
Fuck it. Fuck wrestling. Let's talk hoops.
and still not get to everything. I mean, that's just a legendary figure in the NBA and in sports. And, for once I get to flex a little, because, I probably know more about that era of the NBA than I do of 2 years ago. So
Right?
for whatever reason, I was referring to Luca as the European guy on Dallas up until 2 weeks ago. So, I wasn't sure how to pronounce his name, but that series, that's going to be over soon anyway. That was,
I don't want to talk about that. Let's just move on. I don't like how things are looking there. Not great. So,
quietly effective Celtic team. I mean, they
Oh,
destroyed the Pacers.
just methodically
They're destroying
destroying
these
people.
guys.
Yeah.
But I don't think anybody thinks of them as like an all-time great team, and I don't necessarily think they should. But playoff domination, though.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, though, it's one of those things where I know somebody in our Discord, I believe it's Angry216, who's always in our Discord, always talking hoops in the sports channel, said that if you put up their playoff record and combine it with the regular season record, it's some insane. It's like they're like 79-13 this year, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty fucking great. You know what I mean? When you look at it in totality of what the regular season is, including the playoff domination, their record is wild. It's like, oh wow, yeah, that's a hell of a record. I mean, they're not losing games. They just don't lose. They just beat everybody every game, and that's gonna, at least at some certain point, if they sweep the NBA Finals, obviously then there's a real discussion that okay, this is a legendarily deep team. Maybe it's not like maybe the two guys aren't like all time legends in Tatum and Brown or whatever, but in terms of an all time deep team and methodical and well coached and knowing where to be and all ends of the ball and defense and passing and shooting, it's just like, man, they're just destroying everybody.
Yeah, well, someone in the chat, they did not destroy the Pacers. The Pacers choked away 3 of those 4 games in the last minute. Listen, they got swept.
Flags fly forever, man. It's about the wins.
I don't know what you want. Come on. Okay, so what if the Pacers hold on and win one of those games? What effectively change? You think they're going to win the series? They got swept. So, you either win the game or you lose the game. So Looks like the Celtics. Game 4 is in Dallas, though, right?
Yeah,
Dallas.
well, but Game 3 was in Dallas, and they didn't really show up either. So
Let's see if they show some guts. Take a game here, but series is obviously over. They're not coming back from 3 down.
they're not the way the first 3 games have went. That's all right. So, I am going to see it as we're talking sports. Then we'll get to wrestling here in a minute. My first White Sox game on Tuesday. I'll be there to watch the all-time, on pace to be an all-time legendarily terrible team. I get to watch that. Now, you are fascinated by my hometown team, right? Yeah, I think you've watched more White Sox games than I have because you can't stop watching them find ways to lose because they find new ways to lose every night. It is dinner theater to see how can what rule, what thing, what can they do? I didn't think it could get any better than last week. Back-to-back games, they're up like 6 runs to the Cubs and then lose both those games 7-6. It's like you can't make that up. You know what I mean? Like it's so poetic. Back-to-back games, they had giant leads and lost by the same amount in each of those games. Then they lost by some like base rule the other. I mean, they find new ways every night, man. Every night is just a new adventure in White Sox baseball.
The one you're talking about against the Red Sox it was
it was some rule that I didn't even know what they did.
It's what it was. No, listen, I'll explain it. There was a runner on third, okay? And they wanted to appeal that the runner missed the first base bag. So when you appeal, you step off the rubber, you throw to the base, and if the runner did miss the bag, the umpire will call him out. That's how you do an appeal in baseball. If you think someone missed the base. So the Red Sox knew they were going to appeal. So as soon as he stepped off the rubber and lobbed it over to first, the runner from third stole home. Which I legitimately have never seen in my life.
That's incredible.
Now, to compound it, he threw away the appeal. Like the pitcher threw the ball away on the appeal. He missed the first baseman.
Of course he missed the first baseman. Even if he did it right, they would have fucked up. But he made sure because it's a White Sox baseball game that he then wild pitched the throw to first. It's just
again,
it's
not
great.
A pickoff play. All you have to do is softly lob the ball over. It's not a pickoff. And he's still... now the runner was stealing either way because I guess the runner figured, all right, they're lob it over there. If I time this right, I can steal home on the appeal. But it was made easier by the fact that the pitcher threw it away. A couple nights later, they lost a 4-run lead in the 8th, and then and Kopech gave up 4 runs in the 8th to tie the game. I forget who they were playing, and then it was Seattle. And then Seattle won it in the bottom of the 9th with a walk-off grand slam. Like
a walk-off grand slam. Yep.
Inventing ways to lose. I watch them every night.
They lost the game a couple weeks ago where they interfered on an infield fly, and that's how the game ended. It was a double play after an infield fly interference.
Yeah.
You can't make that new things. Yeah. The Major League Baseball has been played for centuries. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so, but you watch this White Sox team and there's things you've never seen before, things you never heard of, things you didn't think were possible. They are making it possible this year. And we're not even halfway through the year yet. Not even halfway. Still plenty of season left to go.
Yeah. They're on pace to win 39 games. I think it is something like
right
that.
Now. Yeah. Right around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're 7 games worse at this point than the second worst team, which I think is the Marlins. I want to say they're like 7 games worse than they are. I mean, they are lapping the field right now in futility.
Yeah, I find them fascinating to watch. I watch them
17 and 52. They're 17 and 52.
Last night, Robert didn't start. They brought him in to pinch hit in the 8th. He tied it with a solo homer, and then they lost in the 9th. So even when shit goes right, it ultimately goes wrong. I mean, they just it really is incredible.
One thing that would probably help is not giving 110 plate appearances to Martin Maldonado, who Joe, if you have a barf bag nearby, or definitely hide the children before I give you his stat line right now. My man is batting .078. His on base is 130, 130. His slugging is 118. He's slugging 118. His OPS plus is -28.
Yeah, great defensive catcher. Now listen, there is no You cannot play defense well enough at any position to make up for that kind of offense.
There's
You
no
can't.
way.
I mean, you can be Ozzie
you
Smith.
can't frame you can't frame enough great pitches to make up for
Junk
slugging
science
118.
anyway, by the way.
118.
You can't. There's no defense you can play that's good enough to make up for that. And they just keep running them out there. It really is. You know, they had Kevin Pillar batting cleanup, and they let him go. They released him. You know, Kevin Pillar's hitting like 320.
Of course. Yeah.
And he's slugging like 520 now, including
is.
the putrid White Sox numbers. I mean, there's just something going on. There's a curse. Got to be some kind of curse. It's
I have some theories, but not enough time in the show for that.
beyond awful. But I'm glad you're finally, getting into things and getting out to it. If they're
going to be this
horrible...
bad, if they're going to be this fun bad, well, I just thought they were going to be plain old bad. I thought they were going to do some dumb, 65 win season, some 70. You know what I mean? That's kind of boring. Like that season where it's like you don't have any young prospects, you're just not very good. You're just, whatever. But now it's like, oh, I'm locked in now because they're historically bad. I'm watching history unfold in front of me. Every time they're out there, it's like, well, they're going to find a way to lose this game. And they are. They're very often finding just the most miraculous ways to lose. So now I'm all in now. I'm all in because it's now fun bad and I want to be a part of this history.
Yeah, I've rooted for awful teams, and it's almost the pressure's off because you don't care whether they win or lose. So now you get to just watch if Oscar Colas develops. You get to watch if Crochet continues to develop. I wouldn't trade him.
Them all.
You got him under control for
trade them all.
Like 5 years of team control.
They're not going to be good for 5 more years. Jerry Reinsdorf ain't going to pay.
5 years is a long time.
He ain't going to pay him.
Once
Garrett Crochet's ready to get paid, Jerry Reinsdorf's not going to pay him. Just trade them all.
He might be dead. Reinsdorf might die. He's like 90.
Well, I don't want to say I hope so, but
Now Fetty, you trade Fetty. Robert, you trade him probably, as painful as it would be.
Yeah.
He won't be around for the next good team.
No, that's the thing that's going to be fascinating about the second half of the White Sox season. And then I promise we will get to wrestling. The second half of the White Sox season, what I'm so fascinated by is they're this bad now, and they still have Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty and Luis Robert. They still have comparable Paul DeYoung. They still have guys who's had a pretty good season. They have
good year, yeah.
They have Major League Baseball players on their roster, and they're this bad. They're going to trade anybody that they can. Anybody that any other team wants, they'll trade them for pennies on the dollar. What's it going to look like the second half of the year? Because this is what it looks like now with real players. They're going to potentially not have any real players in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to get real fun. That's where I might get split season tickets just to make sure I'm there live to take it all in. Now the weather's nice, sun's shining, good weather, good time to get out to the ballpark. Free tickets as well, that helps. But not going to pay Jerry Reinsdorf. If somebody's going to give me a ticket that they already bought, I'll go do that. So all right, I guess we got to talk about professional wrestling at some point here.
And also now that MLB has a draft lottery, you're not even guaranteed the first pick.
Well, they can't get in it because they're not considered a small market team. It's great. So do you know about those new rules?
You're not even allowed you're not allowed in the lottery, period.
No, no, not at all. Because despite the White Sox crying poor and saying, "Oh, look at us, we ain't got no money," and all this that they always do, the Major League Baseball is like, well, you're in a major metropolis and you make X amount of revenue, so no, you don't count as a small market team. Only the small market teams. So they are going to lose 110, 15, 20, whatever it might be games and pick eighth. You know what I mean? Or ninth or whatever. I forget how many quote unquote small market teams there are, but they're not one of them.
Someone in the chat says it's the highest they could pick is 10th. I wasn't aware of that rule.
You can't make that up. Again, you can't make that up because that's what I thought too. I was like, you know what? Is this all going to be worth it? Because you're going to be guaranteed the number one pick probably. Okay, never mind. The rules say that we had to pick 10th, so you're going to lose. Not only that, you can't even be in the lottery. I wasn't aware of that part of the rule where you can't even be in the lottery. Because the Reds won 84 games last year and somehow got the second pick this year, and I was all against the draft lottery until that happened. Now I believe it's fair. It's a fair system, and I'm glad they implemented it. Right. It's about time the small market teams get a little.
That's right.
Yeah, unfortunately, I cheer for a team that wishes it was a small market team, but isn't actually a small market team. So it's the worst of both worlds there. So, yeah. So there you go. That's the sports half hour here on the Flagship podcast. But don't worry, we'll get to dumb wrestling here in a second because we got a lot to talk about. We have NXT Battleground from the UFC Apex. We will review that show, including Trick Williams and Ethan Page in your main event. Roxanne Perez, Jordan Grace from TNA. You got Clash at the Castle coming up this weekend. Yes, there's a WWE pay-per-view again this weekend. Again, it's at 10 a.m. Central, I think, 11 a.m. Eastern, something around there. Very early Saturday morning, WWE Clash at the Castle in Scotland. So we'll talk about that, preview that show for you. WWE and NOAH have an announcement, a major announcement that's going to take place at this weekend's NOAH show. We will wildly speculate as to what that might be. We're going to talk about New Japan's Dominion, review that show, as well as the G1 Climax format. We got an announcement of what the format's going to be, when the tournament's going to start, and some other stuff going on this year with the G1 Climax. New Japan Seoul coming up this weekend as well. They have a pretty big show on the 16th. This Triple Mania, man, I cannot wait to talk about this. And there is a fantastic must-read preview up right now at voicesofwrestling.com from Cubs fan, luchablog.com, who writes previews for big-time lucha shows for us at voicesofwrestling.com, wrote a fantastic, amazing, must-read Triple Mania Tijuana preview at Voices of Wrestling. He even instructed me to not link anybody to the show. He doesn't even want people buying the show, watching the show, doing nothing with the show. It's an all-time great burial of what looks like a fucking horrific show. So I am excited to talk about Triple Mania Tijuana. Do I have to watch this thing? Are you going to make me watch this?
Yes.
Fuck. It's so bad. Look at this show. We'll talk about it later. It is fucking atrocious, this show. This is they're doing this thing in like a baseball stadium too. I don't know what the fuck they're thinking, but it's AAA. Who the hell knows what they're ever thinking. But let's start out with something that we did a lot earlier in the year, but has kind of caught fire again here in June as a bunch of contracts are coming up. It is contract season, and there's a lot of movement going around, and a lot of people potentially moving companies and letting contracts lapse, and where are they going to go and what are they going to do. So we'll start out with Chad Gable. Now, PW Insider essentially said with Chad Gable that he has already reached a new deal or is in the process of reaching a new deal, but from all accounts, it looks like he is going to stick, and he's getting the biggest push he's ever had in WWE. A lot of stuff's kind of working out for him pretty well, so it makes sense that he's sticking around, but it looks like, despite he hasn't put pen to paper yet, but it feels like every report is basically that he's going to hang around. So you've seen the same thing about Chad Gable as well, that he's probably just going to hang there.
Well, I don't understand why he would leave. He's got the match coming up against Zayn at the pay-per-view this weekend. They're going to have to do the split with Otis at some point. He's obviously, like you said, getting the biggest push of his career. I don't understand why he would leave that situation. And, assuming the money is somewhat equal, and go into an unknown situation with AEW, which is the only other place he would go. It just doesn't make any sense. You stay with the sure thing where you're being pushed. And I had heard that AEW was interested. Quite honestly, I don't know why. I don't. Chad Gable's fine. I mean, I don't know where he would slot in with AEW.
They've got him. They don't need Chad Gable.
They got a million great workers, and he doesn't jump off the page to me as anything special. And quite honestly, I think what he's doing in WWE now, and it's taken a while, but he's gotten over with their fan base. And I think he'd be a fool to leave. Again, assuming the money is anywhere close to equal, that's someone who's making the right decision to stay put. And he's probably just holding out because he's playing the leverage game, as he should. But ultimately, you have to think that they're fairly certain that they're going to re-sign him because they're still featuring him very strongly in the booking. So that's always your clue as to how confident companies are that whether they're going to keep somebody or not. He's still being pushed strong in his company, despite the fact that his deal's coming due, because they feel like that the probabilities are going to stick around. You look at AEW, and there's a bunch of people under contract who you cannot find with a search party, and they aren't on TV. It's because Tony Khan isn't certain that he's going to be able to keep them, so he's not going to feature them on TV. So or he knows that he's just going to let them go when their contracts come up, and maybe some of those names will come up in this conversation. But I'm not. Gable. He'd be a fool to leave. I think he's in a perfect situation right now in terms of right where his push is, and there could be more for him down the line. I mean, they seem to really like him, and he's over with their fan base, and he's probably going to sign a difference-making contract. This is probably going to be his first monster contract. I don't know that his deal has been up since AEW has existed. And if it was when he was an undercard guy. But now he's not an undercard guy.
Right.
So he's in a position now to get
He was
that
Shorty
life-changing
G.
deal.
You know what I mean? He was like an undercard guy and or Shorty
or a
G.
comedy guy.
Yeah.
Or the swoosh guy, and doing comedy shit. Right now he's in a position where he has some leverage because they're pushing him and he's over. So, I do expect him to stay.
Ricochet is obviously a very, very interesting one because I think I don't know if we mentioned it on the show, but there was rumblings of this happening a little while ago that Ricochet, his contract might be due and he might be looking to go elsewhere. And I always just kind of thought, no, there's no way he's going to re-sign with WWE. Obviously, his wife is there. I believe they're married. Samantha Irvin's there. It's like, why would he go? The guy's had it made in perfect spot for him, and he's like, whatever. But no, he lost his WWE Speed Championship to Andrade. This Monday, he took a beating from Braun Breaker, got sent away in an ambulance, and PW Insider reported that Ricochet has given his notice to WWE, and he will be exiting the company immediately because I believe his contract was up either yesterday or today. So he is a free agent. Now, I don't know what that means for him. I don't know the next step for him, but I'm kind of excited about what Ricochet. I mean, I like this. This is a bet on himself, and this is a guy who still really young, a lot younger than a lot of people think. Didn't really use. I think the biggest thing for him is did not really use his bump card a lot in WWE. Like that was one of my concerns is that Ricochet's going to go to WWE and every single night they're going to want him to do a 630. Every single night they're going to want him to jump over the corner to the outside or whatever. And there was a while. I mean, when he first came into NXT, there was a lot of that. When he first came to the main roster of WWE, there was a lot of that. But he's kind of slowed down his style a little bit. He's still fantastic. When he needs to do incredible stuff, he can still do incredible stuff. So I'm very curious what this next step is for him. And if he truly believes, hey, look, I have a lot left to give to the wrestling world, he might be hungry about doing this. I mean, he had it made in the bank. He could have just said, re-sign me. I'll keep doing the basic shit that I'm doing. My wife's here. I got a decent job. Everything's fine. He's, by exiting the company and giving his notice, that's a bet on himself. So I'm very, very encouraged by what Ricochet could do on the outside, whether that's in AEW, whether that's doing a spot with New Japan for a while, whether that's, fucking doing Dragon Gate or doing Gleats. If he wants to have fun, he can have a lot of fun. He could do a Pac-like run here where he goes and fucks around for, a couple months and then goes to AEW or whatever. But I'm very, very optimistic about what Ricochet can offer the wrestling world. And that's a big boon to whoever can pick him up because he's a world-class talent still.
So I don't think his deal's up. The talk now is that the deal's not up until July, but that he's given notice. Now there's even talk that they might book him again. Maybe he'll lose a match to Braun Breaker, or maybe he'll lose a match to Ilya or whatever.
Okay.
The talk over the last 48 hours was that he's actually still under contract till July. And Tony Khan did do a media spot where somebody asked about Ricochet and he wouldn't comment on it. And he said, I don't talk about talent that's under contract to other organizations, which would also line up with he's not quite a free agent yet. With all of that said, all three of the major news reporters are now in agreement that he's leaving. Mike Johnson's report was the strongest. He flat out said that he was giving notice and he was done. Sean Ross Sapp said he couldn't confirm that he gave notice, but that most people that he spoke to, or everyone that he spoke to, said that he's most likely done. And then Meltzer at first said, I don't know. The people I'm talking to say it's up in the air right now.
He kind of hemmed and hawed. He hemmed and hawed at first. But then a couple hours later, he said, all right, I talked to some more people, and he's gone. It turns out the people he talked to were Ricochet because he basically, it's funny because, you had Mike Johnson out there, being obnoxious on Twitter saying that everyone could apologize to me and everyone get in line and apologize to me. And, and it's like, it turns out that the person, Meltzer's source was Ricochet himself. Us, the Falcons, was basically Meltzer's source on all this, which is funny. Now, for all I know, Ricochet was the source but see, if Ricochet was the source for the other two, and Meltzer won't confirm that he gave notice either. See, here's the thing. I'm leaving a sliver that this guy could stay. I'm leaving the door cracked. It's probably 99% certain that he's leaving. And, to me, the biggest tip-off is Will Ospreay. Because he tweeted out a picture of them shaking hands in Cork and Hall days before any of this broke. And everyone knows that those two are tight. So you feel like Ospreay was tipped off by Ricochet that Ricochet has decided to move on.
And then Ospreay the other day, he tweeted out a picture standing in front of a sign that said Ricochet, just some random sign that had nothing to do with the wrestler. He knows the guy is not only leaving, but probably coming to AEW. Tony Khan obviously can't comment on it if he's under contract until July, which is why he said nothing. And Tony probably wouldn't have given that interview or anything anyway. He's very tight-lipped these days when it comes to stuff like that. But my larger point was all three of the major reporters now seem to agree that he's probably on his way out, and I guess just going to be a matter of time. I saw some WWE fans saying, "I hope Samantha Irvin doesn't leave with him," and I couldn't agree more. I hope she doesn't.
I
leave
hope
with him
she
either.
stays. Oh my God, I would love, Joe. I would love for Samantha Irvin to be the WWE ring announcer for the next 50 years. You know what?
If
I
you
hope
want
she
my
stays.
opinion, I think Levesque should sign her to a lifetime contract
I think so
and
too.
never let her leave.
Right. Get her, it's one of these prospect deals. You know what I mean? When like a prospect gets hot and you try to buy out their arbitration years, do that for Samantha Irvin and then 20 more years after that. Just say, we want you to be the voice of World Wrestling Entertainment for the next 40 years. We're a lifetime contract. We're going to give you Bret Hart's contract. We're just going to say, here's Bret Hart's contract. It's yours now. Joe, I am in 100% agreement. I hope and I pray that Samantha Irvin does not leave WWE.
Her and the other stupid growling announcer from NXT that I think they bumped to the main roster.
They did. She's not on, she wasn't on Battleground. I want to say NXT was like 15% more watchable without her growling. It wasn't good.
Definitely.
But 15%
definitely
more
slightly
watchable.
more watchable without her. Yeah. So I want them to sign all their stupid growling ring announcers to lifetime deals so I don't have to deal with them in promotions that I like. But yeah, okay. So working under the premise that Ricochet is leaving, we all know he's going to AEW. Again, this is not someone who's gonna, be wooed by Court Bauer. Okay. Now
hold on a minute. We don't know that.
Now, again, and yeah, he could make a stop off somewhere. Here's the thing, like, it's a very different Dragon Gate now.
It's not his Dragon Gate at all. It's not even the guys he's aligned with, or he's a Shima guy for sure.
Yeah, Shima scouted him very early on, wanted him very early on, brought him into Dragon Gate. Shima is obviously long gone. Dragon Gate is decidedly under new management these days. It would be almost a completely it literally is a completely different promotion. The name has changed, and they had the weird split with the two different companies a few years ago. So it's not like, when Pac did the big Dragon Gate homecoming a few years ago and had that great Open the Dream Gate run, right? It's different scenario now. Like, it wouldn't really be a homecoming for Ricochet because, all of his connections work for GLEAT now.
Yeah. So you're right. He should go to GLEAT. He should do a little run in GLEAT.
I mean, I question whether GLEAT actually exists, but yeah, if it really does exist, that might be, more of an option for him than Dragon Gate would be at this point. Or, maybe he wants to stop off and do a New Japan tour or two. Maybe he wants to have some fun before, he gets back on the old, national TV grind and but his final destination is going to be AEW. I would say maybe he wants to go on an indie run, but there's like no one to wrestle on the indies anymore. Like, PWG's not running shows until that unfortunate situation, gets some more clarity with Super Dragon's partner. I don't know if it. And by the way, Ricochet and Irvin apparently are engaged and not married yet, for the record. But so there's no PWG. There's no Gabe isn't running any promotions where Ricochet obviously had history. Is anyone really hungry to see Ricochet go to Game Changer Wrestling? Does anyone need that? Does anyone want that? I mean, there's just nothing to do on the indies. The indies are a wasteland.
Yeah.
So who knows? But the point is he's gonna land in AEW eventually if we're working off the premise that he is in fact gone. And to me, it's a great move for him because he's never getting pushed in WWE. He's been there for like 7 or 8 years or whatever it is. He has hit his ceiling. They're never pushing him beyond the level he's been pushed at, which is nothing. You can name all of the Intercontinental and US and Speed titles. None of those title reigns meant anything. They weren't big time titles that meant a thing when he held any of them. And he's never going to get pushed there. In AEW, his ceiling is a lot higher. And, I can legitimately see him getting pushed in AEW, like a real push. I think that could happen. And not only, and he gets to work with a whole new slate of people that he either hasn't worked with in many years or hasn't worked with ever before. He obviously is going to have better matches in AEW than he can have in WWE, both from a potential opponent standpoint and, less restrictions. He could go out and work his old style to the full tilt. And anyone who thinks Ricochet is washed up or not the same guy, you couldn't be more. He's going to prove everybody wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Rich, I don't have any doubts he's the same guy. And he's the same guy who came into the company. If anyone who thinks that he's not the same guy, go watch Raw from this past week and look at the bumps he took for Braun Breaker. And you tell me it's not the same guy.
Right.
Okay. Look at the shit that he did in the angle leading up to taking those bumps for Braun Breaker. Or just put in the time to go back and watch any Ricochet match that he's had in WWE where they have given him a chance to go. The guy is still
those speed matches. Those speed matches were,
he's incredible.
He's incredible. He's still Ricochet.
He's still Ricochet. And Ricochet there was a time where Ricochet was like one of the 10 most exciting wrestlers in the world who physically could do things that quite literally no one else could do. Not Will Ospreay, not Phoenix, not Vikingo. No one. Nobody. And I think he's still that guy. I don't see any evidence to run counter to that. And I also don't like this, he's fed pilled. I don't like that talk with him. Rich, he was never on your eat shit list.
No, he never was.
You want to explain to people the eat shit list?
The eat shit list is Bronson Reed is a great example of the eat shit list. That's a guy who signed with WWE, got fired during the pandemic, re-signed with WWE.
Never pushed before, and the other key is wasn't pushed before he got fired.
Wasn't pushed, got fired during the pandemic, got rehired, and now he's on Twitter bitching and moaning about his push. It's like, brother, you went back. So that's the eat shit list. Sasha Banks many times was on the eat shit list because she would, constantly was there and never had an opportunity to leave, but always did the boo-boo lips and, I love Vinnie Mac. Like, those weird tweets that she would always do. Thank you, Mr. McMahon, for another great week at the job or all that sort of stuff, which now takes on a very different connotation given, what's happened with Vince. But, those
no
people.
way, yeah, but you can't get on people retroactively. You got to. I don't want to go down that road, but anyway.
No, but at the time it was like I thought she had opportunities to leave and she didn't, and then she just kept doing the boo boo face stuff.
Well, eventually she did. Does that get her off the eat shit list? Finally saying,
she was on it. She's not on it anymore, obviously, because she eventually put her money where her mouth is and left.
That's right. By handing in her dopey little tag team title and saying I'm out of here, and then never going back. Do you retroactively excuse her for her behavior previously?
I think so.
She earned that, right?
You probably put an asterisk next to her and says, was previously on the eat shit list, is no longer. But yeah, the idea here is you sign with that company, you know full well what that company is going to be, and then you bitch and you moan and you make tweets about it and sort of stuff. And Ricochet could have done that. Ricochet could have signed there and then did boo-boo face tweets and, they're not pushing me because I'm not the right type of guy and all this sort of stuff. And he didn't. He was always, watch Raw on Monday, watch SmackDown on Friday, watch WWE Speed. Hey, I'm on NXT. He was always happy-go-lucky, whatever. Even if he was pissed off or whatever, it didn't matter because he was it was just biding his time. Moxley is a great example. Nobody knew Moxley was miserable, and Moxley just kind of walked around, and and then when he left, it was like bam. They kept giving him contracts and saying, "Oh, hey, you want to re-sign the contract today? Maybe tomorrow, okay." And then, hey, what if we do another, last Shield match for you? Will that make you happy? And he kept kind of just shrugging along, and then eventually just said, "Bye, I'm leaving," and then left out of the back door. And now how miserable he was. In the book, he detailed how miserable he was, but he always put his head down and just said, "You know what? Do what you're going to do out your, run all the way through your contract, and then when you can leave and legally leave, if you want to leave, you go." And that's a great
you put your money where your mouth is.
Right. Andrade, the opposite. That is the all-time eat shit list guy.
Andrade is an eat shit guy.
He is an all-timer. That guy is already bitching and moaning about WWE, which we all knew was going to happen. The guy bitched and if people are not aware, we have been doing the Andrade bitching and moaning stuff since he was as long as this show's existed. People that don't follow Lucha, he's a notorious guy for this. Notorious.
Never happy.
So when the AEW thing was happening, people were all trying to come up with these ideas and concepts and, it's probably because of this, and this, and you and I were just like, it's Andrade, man. This is what he does.
He's never going to be happy.
He wasn't happy in CLL. He wasn't happy in AAA. He wasn't happy in WWE. He wasn't happy in AEW. He's not going to be happy in WWE again. He's just never fucking happy. New Japan, he's just not a happy guy. He's always pissed.
Yeah. So the point of the eat shit list is, if you know what you're getting into, and you know they didn't like you before, and you willingly either stay or go back, and then you keep complaining, no, you can eat shit.
Eat shit.
Because Bronson Reed was staring at a big push in New Japan. They had him beat Okada. He beat Okada. And he went back. Okay, we all know the money's bigger. We all know the ceiling is higher, but you knew they didn't like you the first time. You know, you can't just expect it. So yeah, that's what and Ricochet was never on the eat shit list. He just went and did his job and kept his head down and apparently liked his job. Now, could he be a Moxley that when he gets out, he's going to have a lot to say? Maybe. Or maybe he just enjoyed his time there. How can I knock a man for making a lot of money and enjoying his time and not being overly concerned? That's like Kevin Owens. How can you get mad at Kevin Owens? He likes being there and he's making a lot of money. And, you know, he's happy. His family's happy. Now he gets pushed. You know, Ricochet's never been pushed. But maybe Ricochet just figures, all right, now's the time. I like working here. I met my fiance here. I have friends here. I don't have any beef with this company, but I feel like I've hit a ceiling and maybe it's time to go do something else for somebody else. I don't have any ill will towards someone. I don't have any negative regard for somebody
that's the
like
wrestling.
that.
That's the business, man. That's what you got to do. That's how we know we're in a pretty healthy wrestling business, when a guy can do that. When a guy can be happy with where he's at, but see other opportunities and just go, shit, maybe I'll take these other opportunities and maybe I can go back. You know, and the best thing about that is if you're on your best behavior, you're not bitching and moaning and crying and complaining, it's a lot easier to go back as well. It's a lot easier to try something else out, try another thing out. If you don't like it, you can come back. So that's it to me. Yeah, he's definitely not on that list. And I don't think he's a fed-pilled guy or any of that sort of stuff. He's been there for a while, but you don't think that in 4 minutes in Ricochet's first match on wherever he goes, that you're not going to go, oh, fuck, man, Ricochet's back. Of course you're going to do. You think he's going to grab a hold?
A lot of people think.
You think he's going to grab a side headlock and he's going to be like Mascara Dorada and be like, these kids these days don't know how to work. Nah, dude's going to do some giant flips and crazy shit right away.
A lot of people conflate working WWE style or not being pushed in WWE with the person isn't talented anymore. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a hard time. They struggle with that and get back. He's going to prove so many people wrong if he goes there, which he's going to, when he eventually goes to AEW, he's going to prove so many people wrong. This guy almost immediately is going to be regarded again as one of the top talents in the business. Assuming they let him go out there and do his thing, which they absolutely will at first. You can never count long-term on AEW using people properly and focusing on people, but they'll focus on him at first and he'll show everybody that he's still great. I am so confident. Like, I'm 100% confident. I don't have any concerns at all.
Oh, yeah.
With Ricochet coming to AEW, fitting in, and having great matches with anybody he's in the ring with. In fact, I think Ricochet could be just as good as Will Ospreay has been bell to bell. I could say that with confidence. I don't have any doubt. And I think it's the perfect place for him. Whereas WWE, they're never pushing that man. And maybe he's realized it. And, all this whole idea of, why would he not want to work where his fiance is? I can name 100 wrestling couples who didn't work in the same promotions. Why do people think these couples have to work in the same place? When did this start and how did it start? Why is that a thing? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, every couple's different. Maybe some couples want to work together. I can tell you right now, I would never want to work the same job as my wife. Never. And that doesn't mean I don't love my wife. That doesn't mean I don't love my wife more than anyone in the world. I mean, but I wouldn't want to work with her. Now, maybe there's listeners who do work with their wife or their husband, and everyone's different. Is my point, right? There's probably a lot of people who prefer not working in the same company as their partner, and it's like this. You see this every time. Oh, they want to work with their wife or their husband. You don't know that. You don't know how couples are. You don't know. I like missing the person I'm with. I'm not the kind of person that wants to be with my person 24/7.
It's also like we're in a very different wrestling business these days. It's not like Ricochet is going to be working, Central States, and Samantha Irvin is working in Portland, and it's like, I got to do my run and you got to do your loop or whatever. Ricochet can just fly to wherever Raw is that day. You know what I mean? He could just fly
Or
to...
here's the other thing. They're going to be home together 4 days a week.
Yeah, right. It's not a really hellacious schedule anymore. It's not like you're hitting the ground running on the house show circuit or whatever. I mean, AEW, you essentially need to show up on Wednesday and Saturday sometimes, and we'll see pending, depending on how this Arlington residence thing goes. It might not be that many times that you have to show up on Saturdays anymore. That's a very easy schedule to have a normal life. And he could still, they could be at home, or he could fly where she's at, or she could fly back home after. It's not, the days of it being, 1986 and them being in different loops or whatever, that's not the case anymore. Even in the prime, the peak days of WCW and WWF, and there was a couple people that were couples during those days, but that was much more difficult because they were on consistent schedules, touring all week and all times of the year. Yeah, that's a little tougher to hold down a relationship, but it's not impossible to hold down a relationship if obviously they're going to continue the relationship. It's not that hard to work in two major wrestling companies anymore.
Rich, if we wanted to, we could spend the next half hour naming 100 couples that have worked in different companies at the same time. We could probably name 50 right now, today, if we really wanted to do it. You know what I mean? It's just such a it's just a non-factor that people insist on bringing up for some reason. Look, he's going to be great in AEW, and I think that he could be someone who can get a real, genuine star push. I'm not guaranteeing he gets a star push. He could get one. I think they'd be more open to pushing him, but I am guaranteeing that he's going to be once again regarded as one of the best wrestlers in the world when he gets the opportunities to have great matches with other great wrestlers, which he's going to get in AEW. People are going to see that his talent hasn't diminished at all.
No,
not one iota. And, I'm just salivating at the idea of the matches he could have in AEW with some of the people they have there. I don't think we've ever seen Ricochet wrestle Phoenix, for example, at least off the top of my head.
No, there's a whole new generation of young high flyers that he hasn't worked with.
Dante Martin,
all those CMLL guys too. All the high flying CMLL guys. A lot of the AEW guys, like you're saying, your Nick Waynes, your Dante Martins, those guys. Yeah. He has not Phoenix. He has not. No, there's plenty out there.
Action Andretti, he's obviously never wrestled against, and he could really help a lot of those guys too, those younger guys. And like Commander Vikingo,
right?
He's gonna have an opportunity to wrestle all these guys that he's never wrestled before because he's been in WWE so long as these guys have come up and made names for themselves. Let alone that he's going to get back in the ring with Will Ospreay again at some point.
We forgot about Lucha Underground. A lot of the chat room is getting mad at us that we forgot about Prince Puma's running Lucha Underground.
Okay.
So
all right, I mean, all right. Well, who do you wrestle there? Phoenix?
They're saying they
wrestled
Phoenix there.
Match?
Yeah, that he wrestled Phoenix.
Okay, all right. So he wrestled Phoenix. What about the other 9 guys I named? Jeez. I mean, and so he'll get to wrestle Phoenix again.
Does match that's not edited? Yeah, I'd like to watch them in a match that's not edited, and I don't have Vampiro farting in front of. So that's
yeah. So he'll get to wrestle Phoenix again. Is that the worst thing in the world? Jeez. All right. But yeah, and he's a guy. Look, Lucha Underground. Okay. He's someone who was pushed as a top guy in a second-tier national promotion too. Let's not forget that. Now it's a different gimmick and everything, but this is someone who I still think is a significant star and a great worker, and is going to be an incredible pickup for AEW. So, and if you want my honest opinion, I thought Lucha Underground sucked ass. So I
right,
kind
of wrong guys. I don't fucking
I don't give a shit. I gave up. I hand waved Lucha Underground. Listen, here's the thing about Lucha Underground. Once you start killing people and doing all this supernatural stuff, it's like Shark Tank. I'm out. But I see why other people enjoyed it. But Lucha Underground was decidedly not for me.
No, not for me.
So a lot of the Lucha Underground stuff I have blocked from my memory.
A lot of people love it and remember it and talk about it. Like I don't remember. I remember very few things from it. And I watched I think the entire run. I watched it a little bit longer than you did. I think I stuck with it even through the end. But honestly, you asked me, gun to my head, about a couple of matches that happened. Hey, did this happen in Lucha? I don't know if I remember much of it, to be honest. I watched it. We talked about it in real time, but I kind of lost the love of it very quickly. You lost the love of it very quickly. So yeah, we're the wrong show to do Lucha Underground retrospectives. Yeah.
I was reviewing it for the site when I was writing for the site. I mean, I was like, I can't do this anymore. The show sucks. It just wasn't anything I wanted to watch. But when I think of Ricochet, Lucha Underground is probably, and Prince Puma is probably the very last thing I think
Right.
of. I mean,
I think of Best of the Super Juniors. I think of Dragon Gate. I think of PWG. I think of the Indies. I think of NXT.
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I think of. The Dragon Gate run was incredible. If people haven't seen his Dragon Gate work, I mean, it's some of the best work you'll ever see. I think of the Will Ospreay match in Dallas, which was one of the most memorable live matches I've ever seen in my life at Eddie Dean's Ranch in Dallas. I think of when he came into NXT and was doing all those great matches. I think of all the great indie matches he had. Lucha Underground is very, very far back on the list. Prince Puma it'll come up eventually, I guess, but it's not even close to one of the first things I'll think of when I think about the career of Ricochet. Yeah, all those great Best of the Super Junior tournaments.
Yeah, I always think of that Kobe World 2013 match, Tozawa and Hulk versus Doi and Ricochet. I fucking love that. I got to watch that match again. I fucking love that match.
That is legitimately one of the greatest tag team matches of all time, and I won't hear any different.
I'm going to watch that match tonight, man. I fucking love that match so much.
I will not hear a counter argument. That is, without question, one of the greatest tag team matches in the history of the entire business. And that match that Rich is talking about, it was Kobe World, right? Doi and Ricochet.
Kobe World 2013, Doi and Ricochet versus Tozawa and BB Hulk.
Tozawa and BB Hulk. Yeah, you'll see stuff in that match you've never seen in your life. And that was over a decade ago. And, that match, let me see what Cage Match has it at 9.24. And Meltzer went 3 3/4.
4 3/4. 4 3/4. 4
3/4.
I was like, wait a minute. I'm gonna drive down to Campbell, California, and beat his ass. Me and Eric Bischoff are gonna drive together and beat his ass if he went 3 3/4 on that match. A little Mad Blanky World One International. Yeah, that. Oh man, fuck, I love that match so much.
Yeah, that's one of the best tag team matches.
Yeah, you can think of Prince Puma and Johnny Mundo or wherever the fuck. I'm gonna care about that match.
Yeah, and I'll think of all the Evolve and Dragon Gate USA stuff. He's great. I mean, he's fucking great. And it's a shame on one hand that WWE wildly underutilized him. But on the other hand, like you mentioned at the top, his bump card has not been filled up at all. I mean, you feel like he's been there for 7 years or whatever, however many years. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's been there like 6 years, 6, 7 years. And, honestly, he saved a lot of wear and tear on his body. There's years where he's wrestled like 50 matches a year. Some of those years, 2022, he wrestled 100 matches. This year he's wrestled 28 matches. And then the other years he wrestled about 50 matches per year. And the 1 year, 2019, he had 158 matches. That's his top year. So, and again, with working that company's style, very restricted on what he would have done otherwise if he hadn't been there. I'm not saying he was grabbing headlocks. I'm not saying they Dragon Lead him. It's not as bad as what we're seeing with Dragon Lee, but he certainly has less mileage than like Will Ospreay does for comparison. Where Will Ospreay, before he signed with AEW, was wrestling all over the world 3 times a week, going 110% every time he was out there. That wasn't the case with Ricochet. So, anyway, we spent a lot of time on Ricochet. I think our feelings on Ricochet are pretty clear. This guy's going to come to AEW,
clear. Yeah.
And he's going to be incredible, and he's going to shut a lot of people up.
Booker T, he was on a panel for our buddies at River City Wrestling and said that his contract would be coming up soon. He said, my contract coming up here pretty soon. And like Sexy Red, shake it real fast, get a little more. I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but... Yeah.
Well, look, Booker T, I don't think AEW would have any interest in Booker
T. They
T.
shouldn't. If they have any interest in him, someone has to slap Tony Silly. What do you... No. Please do not have any interest in Booker T.
He just, look, the most valuable thing Booker T brings to the table is a pipeline to his school, because his school has pumped out some decent talent. Other than that, I mean, he brings nothing to the table other than whatever modicum of name value you think he has. But hasn't AEW gone down this road with Paul White, and Mark Henry, and ultimately you're getting nothing from these people? And he's a terrible commentator who is a net negative if you put him on the air. So there's no reason for anyone to want to employ Booker T unless you're WWE. I wouldn't even, if they decide they don't want him anymore, and AEW doesn't want him. I'm sure Impact would call him, but why? Like, what's the point? Like, what does he bring you? What does Booker T bring to your promotion at this stage? To me, the answer is nothing. And I like Booker T. I don't have anything against Booker T.
No. But it's just like that is the absolute worst idea possible that you can have, is paying this guy whatever amount of money he's going to get paid, which is going to be a lot, to do whatever he's going to do there, which is he offers you, like you said, absolutely nothing. His commentary is brutal. He's going to be an ambassador or whatever. That's not going to go well. And we saw it with TNA. This is a guy who clearly believes that one thing is the major leagues, WWE. I mean, you remember that he started out in TNA with a little bit of, he tried, and then very quickly he realized, oh, this is the fucking minor leagues and this place sucks. And he just basically loafed and didn't care and didn't try for most of his TNA run. So no, thank you in many ways. Even though I'm a fan of him, I like him. I just don't. I'm not a commentary anymore.
Historically, I'm a fan of him. I mean, I liked him as a wrestler. I liked Harlem Heat as much as anybody else did. I thought Booker T. Look, when all those other WCW guys said, "Nah, that's okay, we'll sit home," he said, "You know what? I'll take pennies on the dollar because I want to keep working."
Yeah.
And he came to WWE, and I thought that showed guts. And you know what? He ended up being pushed really well there for a lot of years. That worked out for him. And I even think he said his strategy was, well, if none of these other guys are going to come, I'm going to stand out.
Yeah. Just like he did in the last couple of years in WCW, where everybody else was going home and getting angry and being annoyed at everything. He went, fuck, all right, I'll move up the ladder and I'll be the world champion. And yeah, then all those other guys said, we're going to sit home. And he went, all right, fine, I'll be the top guy. I'll be the top guy for WCW.
He was in a program with The Rock. He got programmed with The Rock. Now, he lost.
SummerSlam. Yeah, he lost.
and to Triple H but he got programmed with all the top guys is my point. And he had a really nice run there and made millions and millions of dollars. He's still there. He's been in and out. The TNA run that he didn't take seriously. And then he came back, but, it all worked out for him. And he's a great success story. He was a troubled youth who did time in prison. He turned his life around. Booker T is a great story. We interviewed Booker T like 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was a great interview. Interview.
And when we didn't know what the fuck we were doing, we had him on this show. I have nothing against Booker T. I also have no interest in employing Booker T if I was running a wrestling company. That's all.
So there's Booker T. Hikuleo, according to Cassidy Haynes of Bodyslam.net, Hikuleo's final date with the company, New Japan Pro Wrestling, was Dominion on June 9th. It is believed he is on his way to WWE, but there's more. A lot more smoke to the fire, as PW Insider reported that some trademarks have been filed for his eventual WWE name, which is Tala Tonga.
See,
now I think there's some enunciation on that Tala part, right?
I think it's Tala Tonga, as in our fans are statistically dumb and poor. And if we give him the name of Tala Tonga, they'll know that he's the taller one.
Yes.
Get it?
I love it. I love it so much. It's like Tony D'Angelo being like, Tala Tonga over here. You know what I mean? It's just like,
I legit think
that's what they're doing? You think that's what they're doing?
I think that they know their fans are dumb, and so
statistically
that they can tell them apart.
Statistically dumb.
They're statistically dumb, and in order to tell them apart, they named the tall one Tala because he's taller. I think that I legitimately think that's the reason.
I think there's another pronunciation for it, but I don't care what that is. You know what I mean? I don't care.
It's probably
I want Tala. I want that guy's a big tall drink of water. Let's call him Tala Tongue.
I think it's Tala, as in Tala. I think there's something to it.
Little top Tala, top Tala, Tala Dala. Yeah, there's a lot.
Tala Tonga. He's the taller one.
Yeah, he is the taller one.
If you have a northeastern accent, he's the taller one. Yeah. So there you go. That's why I think they gave him that name. But again, I don't think there's a single New Japan fan saying, shit. Oh, we
throwing
lost
their
Hikuleo
pen down.
too.
Damn it. Even Hikuleo. God damn it.
What are we going to do?
President Tanahashi has to speak on this. He's got to make an announcement. What's happening?
In all honesty, this is the best move for all parties.
Yes, go.
He's going to do so much better in WWE.
As the heater for this unit? Yeah.
And he immediately goes into the top storyline. All three of those guys. This was the right move for them. And New Japan might not know it, but it's the right move for New Japan to no longer have these three guys. Tama Tonga was there for like 12 years. It was time. It was time. Tama Tonga was never getting above that never title level or whatever. You know, he did everything he could do. Same thing for Tangaloa, who again, because their fans are statistically dumb, they renamed him Tongaloa, you know, to make it simple.
Right. They don't
fans.
want you to have to say Tonga and Tonga, so they just said, all right, we're going to make them all Tonga.
Right.
They're all
fans
Tonga.
are very simple.
They're all
These are
Tonga,
simple fans.
all right? Tama Tonga,
Everything
Tala
is Tonga.
and then Tongaloa. Yeah, there you go.
Got to make it simple for the simple fans.
Yeah, and they're from they're from Tonga, just so you know.
They're all from, if it isn't, you know, if they haven't hit you over the head with it enough, they're all from Tonga.
I'm excited for the promos where they talk about how they're all related to each other. You know, like DUI Uso and the other Uso always have to be like, hey, brother, you're my brother.
You're my
it's
brother,
like, we
Us.
got it. We know.
You're my brother, Us.
Yeah.
That's our cousin, Us.
Right, where they have to hit you over
That's
that.
our cousin, Us.
You're right.
So now we're going to get a whole new round of that.
Yes.
From the Tongans.
Yes.
You know, they're going to remind everyone that they're brothers in every promo. No, look, all three of those guys are better off in WWE.
I love it. I think it's great.
And they're automatically in a main event program. Tangaloa, the last match he had in New Japan was an eel eating contest with the Great Okan. This is a move up for him.
Yes.
Like, why would he not go? You know what I mean? Like, he could be in an eel eating contest with the Great Okan in the middle of the card, or he could be in the Bloodline program. What would you do? I mean, where are you going to make more money? Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a great move for all three of those guys. New Japan's better off without him. They need a fresh coat of paint, New Japan. They need to scrub themselves of a lot of these guys. And once again, I will remind all of the WWE office that listens to this show, Rich, I'm going to remind all of them that Chase Owens is an honorary Tongan, and they should think about it real hard. And he would be a great addition to the Bloodline as
Absolutely.
well. In my opinion, you got to get Chase Owens in there. Okay. You can. I had a joke prepared, but I'm not going to do it. With the name you could give him, I'm gonna leave that one on the in the drafts. But he's an honorary Tongan, so just let's give Chase Owens a shot too. So yeah, that's all I have to say on Hikuleo.
Yeah, good. Godspeed, Hikuleo. Godspeed, and we'll not be missing him on New Japan Pro Wrestling. Natalya, her contract is also expiring, believed to be the end of June. PW Torch was told that Natalya had been offered a new contract, but has not accepted it yet.
This might surprise people. I'd kick the tires if I'm Tony.
On Natalya?
Yeah, why not?
Nah.
You don't push her.
Nah.
Listen, you got a lot of green talent there. You know, you got the Owen tournament. I don't know. If the price tag that's the thing. She's going to want a lot of money.
Yeah.
That would be the drawback, because she's not worth a lot of money. Some would say she's worth $1. But I wouldn't, she's going to want millions, and I'm not sure you're going to get no. See, I shouldn't even say I'm not sure. I'm sure you're not going to get a return on that investment from Natty Neidhart entering the Dynamite Zone, but I don't think I think she's worth something if you bring her in, to work with some of the younger talent and the connections now I don't know her relationship with Owen's wife. See, that's an interesting one too, because that would be at play. Like, it could be a non-starter.
Martha's the black sheep of the family for some fucking
She's
reason, because she's normal.
Relationships.
Because she's a normal human being in this family of professional liars.
Now, look,
fools.
I don't want to speak out of school. Martha and Oj and the gang, they might be tight with Natalya for all I know. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't want to speak out of school on that. But my point is, I don't know. And it's possible that there's heat there. So from that standpoint, that would kind of squash that, I would think. But, I mean,
I at this point, I don't want any more old WWE wrestlers. And I mean that I mean in actually old, in terms of, because people say, you just said Ricochet. I mean, like, people in their 40s. We don't need any more WWE people in their 40s.
Right. That'd have been, yeah. No, I get it.
People have been on national TV for the last 2 decades. You know, I don't see the benefit to it, to be honest. But if you want to kick the tires, short-term deal, maybe, but I don't know.
Well, let's flip it around. What if Martha does have a good relationship with her and does think it's good? Then it's kind of like a goodwill thing to bring her in.
Yeah, but then she's going to feel like Saraya in like 2 months. You know what I mean? Where you're like, oh, yeah.
Listen, do I ever want to see her wrestle again? No, I don't care if I ever see Natty ever wrestle again. Okay. All I'm saying is if she came to AEW, it wouldn't bother me. And I think that if I were in the room, I could come up with some ideas for her if you were going to hire her. But is this someone that I feel like they have to pursue? Is this someone who, like, if I never saw her wrestle another match, I'd be perfectly okay with that. Obviously. I mean, I thought she was overrated when people thought she was good. If you want my honest opinion.
Right.
And I thought a lot of the people that came after her just blew her away. And
right. She was good in a time when it was fucking horrific. I mean, the floor, the ceiling was the floor. You know what I mean? Like there was no. She was one of the first genuine, attempt at a pro wrestlers in many, many years in that company. For a while, when it was just, your Kelly Kellys and your whatever the hells and whatnot. So she stood out in that sense. But yeah, very quickly, once the Baileys and the Beckys and the Charlottes and the Sashas came, it was like, oh, okay, like these are real. I mean, people did it with Emma too. Remember Emma and Paige? It was like, oh, this is the greatest women's match of all time. And then over the subsequent months and years, it was
Sasha
like
Banks happened.
Yeah, and then Sasha happened, and Becky happened, and Bayley happened, and Charlotte happened, and now nobody talks about that Paige Emma match, but there was a time when that Paige Emma match was like the match that, I mean, if you weren't around at that time, that was like the hallmark of like, oh my God, women's wrestling is finally getting its due. And then, now multitude times over, you've had, many, many, many better women's matches in that company.
That era of people we're talking about were kind of the bridge to the modern era of female wrestler in WWE. They were the bridge from the Diva era to the better workers that came very shortly after them through NXT. There is something to be said for that. But yeah, the difference in quality was stark. And Natty was always, if she wasn't part of the family she was part of, I don't know if her reputation would be quite the same. I think that has something to do with it.
Of course.
Of
course it does.
And I don't think that's unfair to say. But yeah, anyway, I ultimately, and Suit Williams is saying that Natalia's mother was on the other side of the Owen lawsuit.
Okay.
Which, again, as he also points out in the chat, Natty's mother isn't Natty. And I think we could all relate to that. You might have a family member that you don't get on with, but their kid or their father or you're fine with. So that doesn't necessarily mean that Martha doesn't like Natty and Natty does. Natty and Martha might spend Christmas with each other for all I know. I don't have any idea. I'm just saying that's, when you're talking about Natalya and you're talking about AEW, that's absolutely a factor because Tony Khan has a tremendous relationship with that woman and her family. So he's going to defer to her when it comes to something like this, I would think. And he's definitely not going to want to insult her by bringing someone in that she's opposed to from that family.
So anybody else that you have on your contract season list? That's my list that I have. Anybody else that you've heard about?
Today, did you see the news today that Jeff Hardy's contract allegedly expires tomorrow? So I think it was pretty obvious that Jeff Hardy wasn't coming back. And, adios. No skin off my back with that one either.
Would have never hired him. One of the worst hires they made, and I said it at the time too.
Absolutely. No doubt one of the worst hires they made. Matt Hardy obviously is long gone. And adios to him as well. We were all over that one at the start too. Like, why are you bringing this guy in? They never got to do. I think the whole point of bringing in Jeff was to do the Hardys versus the Bucks, right? They never even got to do it. Oh no, they did the one match and it was horrible, right?
They did the one. Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah, so they actually did do it, but
And then
that's
Jeff, and then they couldn't do it anymore. So.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of, Jeff Hardy's not the last one. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. There's a bunch of contracts coming up in AEW of people you haven't seen on TV in a while. And in some cases, Tony has extension, has the team option, so to speak, on the extensions. And in a lot of cases, he's not exercising. And then there's other people whose contracts are just coming up and they're just quietly going to come up like this Jeff Hardy one did. And it's going to pop up randomly in the news when, those wrestlers are just home biding their time. And then as their contracts enter the final days, they're going to reach out to their favorite reporter, or their agent is going to reach out to their reporter of choice. I think Jeff Hardy was Mike Johnson. And I think some of them have been Sean Ross Sapp, and some of them will be Meltzer, and who knows. And let them know their contracts come and due so that other promoters can see that that's coming. And, in the instance of a contract coming due, you can pop up in another place the next day. It's not like being, it's not like when WWE releases people and they hold you hostage for 90 days. There's none of that. If your contract ends, you can go do whatever you want. So that'll be Jeff Hardy in 2 days. I don't see WWE giving him another chance. I can't see that happening.
I think he's already locked in with TNA because they're doing a lot of Matt Hardy compound stuff. We're doing broken Matt Hardy bullshit again in TNA.
Obvious destination.
Yeah, and they have their pay-per-view tomorrow in Chicago, actually, in Cicero again. So
he might be able to show up.
A lot of people are saying that's where he'll just show up tomorrow, maybe. So,
and I tell you what, if legally he's not allowed to show up till if you're Tony, do you even bother hemming and hawing about that?
Oh God, no. No. Do just say, yeah, you can show up, man. I don't really care.
Yeah, you can show. Yeah, I understand your contract's not up till midnight, but show up 3 hours early. Nobody care. We don't care. You just let him do it. Danhausen is one that I have heard is almost a 99.9% lock. He'll be done with AEW.
I don't think he's coming back. Yeah,
the thing with that one is both sides want the relationship to end. Danhausen wants out, and Tony isn't all that interested in keeping him. So they're just, from what I understand, the clock is just ticking on that one. The funny story I heard with Danhausen. Now Danhausen is almost always has had heat and hot water. After Brawl Out, he got heat with The Office for some tweets that he made after Brawl Out, some memes that he put out, regarding the situation. And then there was the T-shirt thing, which I don't even know all the details on. You can pick whatever side you want to believe on that. The point is, it was something happened there is the point. You can go believe whatever side of whatever story you want when it comes to the T-shirt thing. There's been a lot of problems with him in terms of the indie bookings that he's been taking, and AEW stepping in when he feels, there's been a lot going on with him. I know at one point it was pitched to Tony that Bryan Danielson pitched to Tony an idea for Danhausen where he would get a run of Toru Yano style wins, where he either used chicanery or he would win via banana peel, all the Yano shit from the G1s. Right.
This is what you teased last week, right? And
Tony's response was, "I hate Toru Yano," end quote. And that was the end of that idea.
I love it.
So as far as that goes, that was one of the last pitches that anybody made on for Danhausen. And now, if you notice, Toru Yano has never come over.
Never.
For Forbidden Door.
Not a once.
Or anything like that. Or for Wrestle Dream or any of these joint things. Yano has I don't remember him ever coming over. So, that story lines up. But it was just a very simple,
the deadpan,
I hate
Toru Yano, deadpan, and then end of conversation.
And then the rest of the room was like, okay, I guess we're not going down that road with Donovan Danhausen. So, that was it seems as though that relationship is fractured beyond repair, and I'd be pretty surprised if he ever shows up on AEW TV again. Tony also is not someone.
I think that's done.
He doesn't job people on the way out. You notice that?
He doesn't.
It's just, and I'm not saying it's good or bad, but he usually treats people with a lot of respect on the way out. Like, look at the way Jade Cargill was booked on the way out. Basically, she lost the title, but it was like a competitive match, and she got her hand raised at the end, and they acknowledged that she was leaving. Andrade won a lot of matches in the Continental Classic. Now, they thought they might be keeping him, so his situation might be a little different. But again, they didn't have him go 0-5 is my point, because his contract was coming due. WWE, by contrast, basically had Ricochet get destroyed by Braun Breaker, and now are considering bringing him back to maybe lose a match to Braun. And I don't have a problem with that either. The old school way is you job on the way out. You put somebody over.
Right.
You do the honors. And I think there's merit in that. I also think there's merit in the way that Tony does it, in that, you know, Jade Cargill is going to remember the way she was treated on her way out of the company. She's going to remember that she wasn't asked to be humiliated on television or to lose a bunch of matches and be treated. Look, when Jon Moxley, we just talked about Moxley, when Dean Ambrose was leaving WWE, in between the 19 different farewell gimmicks that they did with him, if you remember, Rich, they were using him as an already in the ring jobber towards the end. Do you remember that phase of Dean Ambrose, where it would be whoever and his opponent already in the ring, and it'd be fucking Dean Ambrose, like, and he would lose in 3 minutes, you know? And again, I don't have a problem with that. I think there's merit and there's positives and negatives to both ways, right? Tony doesn't seem to be the kind of guy who believes in jobbing people on the way out, because I think he plays the long game in that regard. You know what I mean? Like Danhausen. He doesn't have Danhausen on Rampage every week, already in the ring, getting squashed in 30 seconds. And he probably could have do that if he wants to, but he doesn't. You know, and that's Danhausen, who's like a lower prelim comedy jobber anyway. It'd be very easy to beat him like a drum. But he hasn't had anything to do with any of his best friends storyline. Right? He's just been gone. He doesn't want to be there. They don't want him around. So he's an example of someone whose contract, the clock is ticking, and eventually he's going to be gone. And, you know, there's others. You know, the Ricky Starks situation has to play out. And that one I'm not going to comment on. I feel like I'm too close to it. I'm not going to say anything. And the fact of the matter is, I don't really know anything. Like, if I asked Ricky Starks tomorrow, when is your contract up, he wouldn't tell me. So I don't even ask him, because he plays that very close to the vest. The only thing I'll say about the Ricky Starks situation, right, is if you read anything online or on Twitter, I can guarantee you it's probably not true, because his personal philosophy on his contract situation and anything having to do with that is, I don't want anybody to know anything, because he feels like that works in his favor. He doesn't tell anybody anything. So anything you read about his scenario probably isn't true. It's probably people talking out of their ass. In fact, more than likely it is. But again, you know, I know some of the details on his scenario, and it's complicated. That's all I'll say. I'm not going to say any more. I don't know what's going to happen. And then, you know, there's other names too, who, you know, are going to catch people by surprise, who haven't been on TV in a while. And then all of a sudden you're going to read from your favorite reporter, like you did today with Jeff Hardy, so-and-so's contract is up in 2 days. And you're going to be like, oh shit. You know, I didn't see that coming, because Tony is letting a lot of contracts, you know, end. We saw a whole deluge of them a couple weeks ago, right? All at the same time, with Mark Henry and all those other, whoever else was in that group. So, anyway, I think that's
real quick.
Right?
The Dean Ambrose thing, for people that did not live through that or don't remember that. When you're talking about the matches that he had, people might forget about this. He lost to EC3 on Raw. He lost to Elias on Raw. Like, he had, like, you're right. If people do not remember, he was doing like that sort of duty. Like, it was just Dean Ambrose. You know, he'd be on TV, or like you said, already in the ring, and losing matches to EC3 and losing matches to Elias and those sort of guys. Yeah,
he was getting matches without an entrance.
Right.
And the other guy would get the entrance. Then they'd show him like a local jobber with the cryon, Dean Ambrose. And he would just lose them. Look at the times on those matches. Some of them are like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it was weird because at the same time they were doing, we say goodbye to the Shield, and we're going to show this house show on the network, and we're going to do Dean Ambrose's final this and that. And at the same time, they were jobbing him out on Raw. It was
right,
very
losing
bizarre.
to EC3 on Raw.
You know, and even he mentioned, like, after he left, he's like, every night they wanted to give me another farewell. I'm like, you know, these are the same fans. I'm going to see them when I go to the other company.
Right. It's so good.
Who am I
Dean
saying
being
goodbye
like,
to, you
we're
know?
doing another goodbye. How many times I got to say goodbye to these fans? It's like, you know, I love it.
Yeah.
He's so miffed. They're like, we're going to do another Shield thing, this time in Cincinnati. He's like, I don't care. We don't need to see it. How many times am I going to go? All right. Seattle is the last time you're going to see the Shield. All right. Cool.
We're getting reports in the chat that on tonight's Impact they did another murder.
Oh, great. Yeah. We're told Alicia Edwards was murdered today by Rebby Hardy. So
oh, that's too bad. Alicia Edwards.
And I don't know if this is made up. Quote, Eddie Edwards became a werewolf. I'm not sure if that's a joke, if that's real. I'm just going to go with, yeah, I'm sure.
Listen, that's Ibu. Who are you to doubt the backup Hangman?
I don't know if we're being facetious. What I'm saying is, Rich, I don't know what are jokes and what are real.
Show some respect to the backup Hangman.
No, I know the backup. I love the backup Hangman. I love the backup. I'm just saying I don't know what's real and what's fake. You could say Alicia Edwards threw, Moose into a pile of leaves, and then Moose came out as a real moose, and I wouldn't know. That's right. Isn't that completely rational that would also occur? That Rebby Hardy lit Moose on fire and then threw him into a pile of leaves, and then he emerged as a real moose or something. That's possible too.
All right. Well, let me frame it to you this way. The backup Hangman, Rich, is a Jersey guy. Do you think a Jersey guy would ever lie?
No. You got to trust the Jersey guys. I didn't know he's
a Jersey guy.
I know he's a Jersey guy.
He's a Jersey guy.
That changes
everything. That's right. From my neck of the woods. Literally my neck of the woods of Jersey as well. I found that out in a little conversation with him as well.
Right.
So
I didn't know that. If he's from Jersey, then he's all good with me, and I trust him now fully. So
Jersey people don't lie. Ever. Very honest.
No.
There's no organized crime. None of that. It's just
that's New York. There's organized crime in New York, but not New Jersey. The Garden State, not in the Garden State. No.
Not never in the Garden State. So if that's what he says is going on Impact tonight, I believe it.
An American wolf, Eddie Edwards being a werewolf. All right, great. Yeah, Matt Hardy.
Well, it's funny because he was the American Wolves. Get it?
Yeah.
Is that what the name of the team was? The American Wolves?
Yeah, of course.
Remember when they went to NXT? They were the American Pit Bulls.
Yeah, it was very strange, but yeah, I do.
For one match, they lose to who was Victor and what was the name of the tag team?
Oh, the Ascension. Victor
the Ascension.
And what the fuck was the other guys? Victor, also a current member of TNA right now, right? Victor? Not Victor. No, Victor isn't. Yeah. Khan or whatever the guy's name. But what was he? Connor. Yes. He is a current TNA roster member. Yeah. Victor. I don't know what Victor is doing these days. I'm not sure what Victor's doing.
Wasn't Davey Richards Davey Billington in NXT?
No way. Was
on
he?
The nose? I think so. I think he took on Billington because, he obviously, if you hadn't ever noticed.
Really? He was influenced by the Dynamite Kid? I had no idea.
May have enjoyed the work of the Dynamite Kid at some point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was Billington.
He was Derek. Oh, my God. The American Pitbulls, Derek Billington and John Cahill.
Told you.
John Cahill. Eddie Edwards.
Derek Billington and
John Cahill.
Yeah.
That's definitely... Eddie got to the building, thought he was going to be Eddie Edwards, and they said, "Hey, what's your name going to be?" And he went, "What?" They said, "What's your name going to be?" He went, "Oh, I don't know, John Cahill or something, whatever. I don't know." Right?
Probably one of his friends from high school,
right?
Which is like what they do a lot of the
time.
time.
He's in Gorilla warming up or whatever. They're like, "All right, what do you want us to announce you as?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know, Eddie Edwards, right? Like I'm Eddie Edwards. Just call me Eddie Edwards." No.
Yeah.
Davey already knew. Davey knew, and didn't tell him. Davey knew for weeks he was going to be Derek Billington.
Oh, he couldn't wait to be a Billington.
Yeah, and Eddie had no fucking idea, stretching and just he's thinking of some high school friend that he had. John Cahill. Yeah, that's fine.
He was like, "Please God, let me be Billington. Just let them not question. I just want to be Billington. One time I want to be a Billington." Yeah. So, one of the many Dynamite Kid clones that came up from his era, right? You had Brent Albright.
Yeah.
Brent Albright.
Not enough, man. There's not enough Dynamite. That's what's one thing missing in today's wrestling.
We need more Dynamite clones. That's why I'm so high on his nephew. And did you see his debut for Kyushu Pro, which hit YouTube?
I have not. No, it's on YouTube?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
They put it up. I will be reviewing it behind the paywall.
Hell
next written. Now, this is a good time to plug the Patreon because I do have a new set of written reviews going up. I did some a couple weeks ago. And that's going to be one of the matches I review because I'm going to be following him very closely. Anything that Kyushu puts up of Dynamite Kid Tommy Billington, I'm going to be. I love that match from Collision so much. That's one of my favorite matches of the year. To have Dax. Dax, by the way, with the back injury.
Yeah.
Is that why Dax switched to the Tomohiro Ishii gear? With
I
the
think
big belt
so.
on the
Yeah,
back?
I had a buddy text me the other day, and he's like, "I want to say this in the best way possible. But my man's getting fat. Like, why is Dax so fat now? I think we now know why he went to the
Probably
Ishii
can't
pants
work-
and why he's
couldn't
getting
work
fat.
out.
He can't
Yeah.
do cardio. He can't run. He can't move. So that's
But
probably
even
why.
aside from that, he looked shockingly like Tomohiro Ishii with that gear. Like,
He should just go full Tom-ish, man. Just do it.
so does this mean we're getting a Dash singles run? Or are they going to keep Dash on ice? What are they going to do here?
I don't know.
This Dash is a sneaky good worker.
He's pretty
Like,
damn good. Yeah, he's pretty damn good. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
there's some people who think Dash is better than Dax, but Dax is the one who lobbies for the singles matches, and I've kind of softened on Dax. Look,
I could tell you have. Yeah,
I thought his podcast with Kuhn was a fucking joke.
that was
and
bad.
just
That was a low
disrespectful.
era for sure. Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, just doing anything with Kuhn. But that podcast with Kuhn is just such a joke and disrespectful to everybody. But at the end of the day, the one thing you can never say about Dax, that motherfucker loves pro wrestling. Okay? Now, I know some people who can't stand Dax. Dax has a lot of people who hate his guts. And I mean hate him. Because with what you see with Dax is what you get. Okay? There's not much difference in the way he interacts with fans than when he interacts with the people he works with. He is who he is. But the one thing you can't say about Dax, if you set all that aside, the dopey podcast with Kuhn, his questionable, behavior towards some people, all those things, it's obvious that man loves pro wrestling.
He fucking loves pro
and he
wrestling.
loves to
Yeah.
wrestle. And he's pretty good at it. He's a damn good pro wrestler. I don't love all of his, and I think some of his matches are a little overrated, but he was chomping at the bit and salivating to work with Dynamite Kid's nephew. Because that was him, the closest he's going to get to be working with the British Bulldogs, which is probably something that, if he had a time machine, he'd probably book that for himself, so he'll be out a while. And, it's, and now Dash is someone who a lot of people think is even better than Dax. It just doesn't get the opportunities. I don't know if they're going to have ideas for Dash as a singles guy. I guess we'll see. I wouldn't mind seeing him get in there and do some stuff without Dax, but maybe I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to play out. But what were we even talking about before?
Oh,
Dax?
Patreon. We're plugging the Patreon, which is a lot of good
Oh, we're
stuff.
plugging them in. Yeah. So, that Tommy Billington match from Kyushu Pro will be in my next set of reviews, which I'm working on now. I've got a couple of them written, but I'm picking some more matches. It'll be indie matches again, I think. That's how I kind of stay connected to what's going on the indies. I write the reviews behind the paywall. A new Dynamite review this week. I do the Dynamite review every week. Quite honestly, I think it's the best Dynamite review in the world. I don't think anybody reviews Dynamite as thoroughly with the type of analysis that you're going to get. I thought today's Dynamite review was incredible.
I was
really
going to say
thought
that. I don't want to
knocked
blow smoke up your ass because that's the last thing you need is more people telling you how great you are. But I will say this week's Thursday Dynamite review I thought was fantastic. You breaking down the Will Swerve match of Forbidden Door and all the different scenarios and the pros and the cons and all the different ideas of what you can do and what would affect what and what. I thought that was a fantastic breakdown. It was about 15 minutes or so, taking in every angle of it. And I know a lot of people have kind of staked their claim on which side of I want it to be Swerve and I want it to be Will, and a lot of it is done by personal. I either I don't like Will or I whatever it may be. I thought the way that you attacked it was like, hey, look, let's lay out every single possible scenario and every single possible finish and what the pros and the cons of each of those could possibly be to figure out what maybe is the best route to go here or the route that they might take, or who knows. We have all these different scenarios that can play out, and I thought you did a great job of breaking those all down and talking all about them. And that was on the Thursday Dynamite review. The first half hour or so of the show, you did a deep dive into that, really.
Yeah, and real world, logical, and grounded in reality ratings talk that I think is very hard to find. Obviously, a lot of people talk about ratings while knowing nothing about them. And, I think you get good ratings talk on that show. And then, of course, I review the show every week and explore it from angles that I don't think anybody else is doing. So, I lost my passion for the review for a while. I feel like I'm getting it back. But yeah, I thought this week's was really good. Now you're reviewing this Who Killed WCW show. You've got episode 2 up. And people are responding very well to that. So why don't you talk about that for a second while I take a leak?
There you go. All right. Joe's going to take a leak. I will talk about Who Killed WCW. Yes, the Vice TV series on Who Killed WCW. I am going through episode by episode, reviewing the show, breaking down the lies, who's lying on this particular episode, some of the truths about some of the stuff. Episode 1, which came out last week, and that is available on our $1 trial tier as well. So if you're not a subscriber and you want to see, or hear what that sounds like and then decide if you want to upgrade, you can do that for just $1 for the episode 1. From last week. That was more the episode about, hey, here's how WCW kind of rose through the ranks. Here's why everything was going well. And then a little bit of cursory, okay, well, here's who kind of made it all fall apart. Episode 2, and I liked episode 1. I thought episode 1 was really good, and it made me very, excited about what the rest of the series was going to be. Episode 2, not so much. Episode 2 was very much on the streak is over. That was the title of the episode. Goldberg's streak is ending. WCW is losing their grip on the Monday Night War. Eric Bischoff is losing his power in WCW. But I thought they went way, 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 way too easy on Eric Bischoff. And I do hope that in episodes 3 and 4, I don't know, I haven't seen them yet. They're coming obviously in the next couple weeks. Return to, hey, wait, hold on a minute. This guy was in charge when a lot of the destructive stuff happened. I thought in this episode we did a little too much of what I was worried the series was going to be, blaming Turner, blaming the merger. Oh, nobody in Turner wanted us to succeed, and standards and practices did this, and yada, 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 and all that sort of stuff. That just completely glosses over the fact that, Eric Bischoff, while at the helm, was leading the charge when they did a lot of destructive stuff in the last half of 1998, and leading the charge along with Kevin Nash, who also lies like an idiot throughout this entire episode as well. Kevin Nash was the booker. Eric Bischoff was the president, while WCW was just doing unbelievably destructive stuff in the first part of 1999 and basically destroying their business. I mean, that's really what it is. And they didn't talk about this at all in the show. And I probably went a little easy on early 1999 when I reviewed episode 2. So I have a written piece coming up hopefully in the next couple days talking about how destructive early 1999 was to WCW, because this, Who Killed WCW just kind of went, oh, yeah, we lost our grip on the Monday Night War and all this sort of stuff. But, the Turner guys, it was kind of bullshit. And the Turner guys did this, the Turner guys did this. And then Eric Bischoff leaves. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a minute. There's like 6 months there of really destructive booking and really destructive business decisions that you are not talking about. And the episode ended with like, let's talk about how great Eric Bischoff did and whatnot, and how, he changed wrestling forever as he goes off to the sunset. And I was like, fuck off with that, because this guy does not allow. This is one of the primary players in Who Killed WCW, and it feels like we're letting him off the hook. So that's what episode 2 is more about. Breaking down Kevin Nash and his attitude about this, and he plays a very big role in killing WCW. Eric Bischoff, who I thought came across a little too easily, and continued, Bret Hart's a pretty good character in this series as well. But it's well done. It's a well-done series, and I'm going to stick with it. So episodes 1 and 2 are up there. I will do episodes 3 and 4 over the next couple of weeks, as well as they air on Vice TV. But that's up there. Bret versus Owen, you're going to get in the next couple of next week or so. Hopefully get a new episode of Bret versus Owen covering June of 1994 in the Bret Hart versus Owen Hart feud. That's obviously the King of the Ring. So Owen Hart winning the King of the Ring, Bret Hart versus Diesel, and that stuff going on with their feud. But plenty coming up. And this is a great time to subscribe too, because the end of the month, Forbidden Door coming up in 2 weeks? 2 weeks? Yeah, 2 weeks for Forbidden Door. So we'll be doing
tier.
$10 tier for Instant Reaction Live. Yeah, it's going to be always a great time. Always a great show. And always, our most the busiest the chat room is, the busiest the Patreon is during these, AEW instant reactions. So that should be a great one this year. And Forbidden Door looks fantastic.
Listen, again, nobody's going to break down an AEW pay-per-view the way we do. No. That's just not going to happen. So, we're going to give you 2+ hours more than likely on that. Plus all the other content back there. The last couple match of the weeks I've been taking a look at a lot of these All Japan classic matches that anniversaries have come up. This past week was the 6-9-95 tag, Kawada and Taue versus Misawa and Kabashi, which a lot of people think is the greatest tag team match of all time, and some people think is the greatest match of all time, period. So I've got a nice write-up on that match, on the match of the week this week. And of course, if you're in the Discord, you can get an exclusive match of the week pay room for paying customers, where we talk about the matches that are put up for match of the week on the Discord. And I can tell you, the match of the week I have coming up this week, I already wrote it. It's already in the drafts. I am so proud of this one. It is the furthest thing from an all-time classic match like the last couple of weeks have been, but it's a write-up on a wrestler that I've been wanting to do for a while. And that's all I'm gonna say. I don't want to give, but it's in my wheelhouse. I'll put it that way. I think Rich knows who I wrote about, and it's someone who is directly in my wheelhouse as a fan, and who probably hasn't been written about by many people historically in pro wrestling.
No,
so that's coming up
be
on
a very unique piece that you probably will not read. Yeah. You're not gonna be able to compete with other large write-ups about this particular wrestler. Yeah, this one of one.
Yeah. So $10 tier gets you everything. $5 tier gets you most of the content, but the $10 tier, you're going to get the live flagship every Thursday night. You can listen to the show live before it's edited and jump in the chat, all those things. And plus the instant reaction lives and all the written content we do. So you're better off just getting on the $10 tier. Well, look, the $5 tier gets you a lot of content too, including the Thursday Dynamite reviews and all of the other audio content that's behind the paywall. Our archives, I mean, we've had this Patreon since like 2018.
I can link to everything. It's wild. As I'm writing articles, I can link to pretty much every major show that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years. I forgot to mention, I got a new series coming out. Episode is already recorded, ready to go. Change the World. I'm looking at AEW's first, basically 2-3 years of pay-per-views, all the way from the beginning of Double or Nothing 2019, all the way to the AEW Double or Nothing 2022. So breaking that down as well, reviewing the the major matches from that pay-per-view, talking about all the news and notes going on in AEW at that time. As they passed their 5th year with Double or Nothing, I was like, fuck, 5 years, that's enough time to. And then I went through the notes and I was like, oh my God, so much happened in this company in just the last 5 years that I could do a retrospective series about this now. And I did. So that is coming out in the next couple of days as well. I forgot to mention that $5 tier for Change the World, going over AEW's rise and beginning and all that sort of stuff. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, the archives alone are worth the price of the sub at this point. To go back and I've even forgotten about a lot of the content that we've done behind the paywall. I mean, there's just so much great stuff back there because a lot of it's evergreen, a lot of it's historical content and everything else. It's probably fun to go back and listen to old Dynamite and pay-per-view reviews to hear all of our awful in real-time opinions.
No, see, the thing is, I think our takes are perfect because I told people I was doing this Change the World series, and Jay Fletch, who's a longtime subscriber and listener, was in the Discord and talking about how he listened to our Double or Nothing 2019 review that we did, and kind of like, oh my God, here you go, you guys are talking about Double or Nothing 2019. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, we're probably way off the base on all this sort of stuff and this and this and this and all these sort of things or whatever. And he's like, it's kind of the same show that you guys do now. It's like I bitched about Brandy and was like, I don't want authority figures. And I think Brandy is towing the line and she's getting a little too close to being an authority figure. So still on that. And then you and I talked about, and he said that you and I talked about how he loved that there was nothing backstage. All the action on Double or Nothing was in front of the crowd, in the ring, or on the stage. Same stuff we talk about now. It was like he mentioned 5 or 6 different things, and I'm like, people think we're like we make these things up or we're grifting or whatever. The same opinions we had in 2019 are the same opinions we have in 2024.
Yeah. Anyone who thinks we fabricate AEW opinions is a fucking idiot. I mean, how dumb can you be? Like, I spent all last year banging on AEW for how bad they were. I spent the previous 3 years telling everybody how great AEW was. When AEW has a great Dynamite, there's no bigger cheerleader than me. It's like 1 week they're telling us that we're grifting, and then the next week all the WWE fans and anti-AEW people are telling us how we're in the bag and we're getting paid. Right. Well, which is it?
You're sucking Tony's dick. They love to say that. That's all. We're always sucking dicks. I don't know what's going on, man. We're always Tony's sucking us or we're sucking. It's very wild. It's like I'm
a straight man, Rich. I've never sucked a dick.
Well, somehow it's switched from not only that we're being paid, but we're now filleting each other for some reason. It's like, okay,
now we're blowing these people.
Right. I'd rather get the money, to be honest. If Tony wants to give me, I'd rather just get a briefcase than I don't need that.
But yet I buried the company the entire year last year, from March through fucking December. So it doesn't make any sense. But
well, you were grifting then, and now you're not grifting, or you are grifting. I can't keep track of it anymore.
When I like the show, then it's Legental activity. So which is it? When I don't like it, it's Legental activity. When I like it, we're blowing Tony. I can't keep it straight anymore.
That means we're doing well. That means we're doing it right because making everybody angry.
I'm now upset that I exposed the world to Crystal Gentle and WWE PR. They're using it against us now, Rich.
I know they really are. Yeah, it's like,
they're
brother,
claiming that we are compromised by the guy whose name they wouldn't know if it wasn't for me. It's just it's fucking wild. Speaking though of Dynamite, on that Dynamite review today, which was recorded and released before the ratings came out, I predicted that they would lose in total viewers, but win in the demo. You want to show me someone with their finger on the pulse of these ratings more than me? Show me.
Unfortunately, you called yourself Quasimodo as opposed to You were trying to go for Nostradamus, right?
No, Quasimodo predicted all of this. 681,000 viewers for Dynamite and a 0.23. And NXT did 718,000 viewers and a 0.22. The perfect numbers for the discourse.
Oh, yes. Right? It's so good. The dummies are going to bring up the total viewership and the loss. Anybody that knows anything will talk about the demo, and everybody will just scream at each other back and forth, and no one will talk on the same wavelength. So, perfect.
But again, well-reasoned ratings talk is why people come to places like this. And the fact of the matter is, I thought that, look, you can't call it a good number for Dynamite, but that was a perfectly acceptable number going against the NBA Finals, where you finish number 2 on cable.
Yeah.
Behind a soccer game that was airing on TNT, which means Dynamite beat every non-sports program on cable last night. It was number 2 on cable. It beat every entertainment and news show against the NBA Finals. So while I don't think they're popping corks in the room, I think everyone involved, from Tony Khan to the people in the room to the suits at WBD, are pleased with how well Dynamite held up last night. I really do believe that. Now, you know, if you go on Twitter, you're going to get the worst ratings discourse because everyone has an agenda, and you know they're just
or they just don't even know. They don't know what the hell they're
or they don't know what
at.
they're talking about. Yeah. I thought it held up very well, and next week they'll be back to what they. And look, here's everything too, and who's been on top of the Big Bang Theory ratings more than I have? Okay, when Big Bang Theory gives them that big lead in, that first quarter hour has the big lead in, like it had last week with the MJF segment. This week with the NBA Finals and all the pregame shows and everything, you look at quarter hour 1 of Dynamite last night, and it was back down to under 800,000 total viewers for the first quarter hour, because I guarantee you when those Big Bang Theory numbers come out in a couple days, because those take a little bit longer, Big Bang Theory is going to be back down. Last week, Big Bang Theory was back up to 948,000 total viewers, which is why AEW got the great lead in for quarter hour 1. This week, quarter hour 1 for AEW was back down to 785. So it stands to reason with the NBA Finals that Big Bang Theory, which has also been hurt by the sports, is going to be back down to that level, giving Dynamite the lesser lead in again. Next week, it'll be back to normal. Big Bang Theory will be back near 1 million viewers, like they usually do in total viewership. And they're going to hand AEW that lead in. And I'm sure AEW's quarter hour 1, which, by the way, will be commercial free and features MJ Hogan, is going to do a monster quarter hour.
I love that this guy.
He's a smart guy.
He knows it. That man has a subscription to WrestleNomics. I am positive of it, because that man comes back on the non-weekend and does the first segment. No commercial, first segment out of the gates. Last week has that great rating. Stays away from the first segment on this week's show.
Rich, hold on. Not only stays away from the first segment, isn't even advertised for the show.
Right. Kind of just stays out of the loop. And then now no NBA Finals, no sports. Next week, a match, segment 1, no commercial, out of the gates, right. MJ Hogan versus Roosh. I love it.
Yeah. He's a smart guy. He understands. He wasn't even advertised this week. Now they hinted he'd be there, but he wasn't advertised. That way he can, if it bombs, hey, don't look at me, don't advertise me. Yeah, it's like, and then next week back commercial free segment 1 with the big lead in, which they'll be back to a big lead in because there's no sports.
Doing a pay-per-view level match to start the show off. Yeah.
And here's the thing. If you don't think this stuff works and you don't think wrestlers haven't politicked this shit since the beginning of time, go look at last week's quarter hour chart and people posting it on Twitter, and you'll see all these comments. Oh, look at that drop from quarter hour 1. MJF's the only draw in the company. This shit works. Because people who don't understand what they're looking at, people who don't analyze it properly, right? Look, I'm not saying MJF had nothing to do with that number last week. He's a big star and people want to see him. But we know the deal with that number last week. And we know that steep drop from quarter hour 1 to quarter hour 2 is always the case when things are back to normal. It's going to happen next week. It's going to happen the week after that. Go back and look before the playoffs started. Dynamite would open somewhere between 900 and 1 million total viewers, and you'd get that complete fall off the cliff to quarter hour 2. This has always been the pattern. But, there's a lot of people out there who, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they speak on this stuff, and they don't know, the trend lines are right there on the chart. No one knows how to read this fucking chart. But the thing, they don't care. But anyway, when I look at these Dynamite quarters this week, nothing stands out. Nothing stands out. It's a very boring chart. Nothing is an anomaly. Quarter hour 1 to quarter hour 2 had, the same drop it always has. Look at the trend line, and it'll be a steeper drop next week when it starts off even higher than it did this week. And then the show basically follows the trend line the whole show. Basically, every quarter hour on this show after quarter hour 1 did either a 0.23 or a 0.22 in the demo. Every quarter hour of the show, with the exception of quarter hour 7, which had the big dip in total viewership. Didn't really have a big dip in demo, only went down to a 0.21. But quarter hour 7, they punted it. If you look, it was a bunch of junk, a bunch of pre-tapes, and 2 full commercial breaks. So quarter hour 7, they punted it. It dropped like 55,000 total viewers. It was the biggest drop of the entire show. Okay? And quarter hour 7 often does have the big drop. With the 2 ad breaks this week, it had the huge drop. And then quarter hour 8, when the main event got in the ring, actually gained viewers, which isn't always the case. Quarter hour 8 often continues to drop. But quarter hour 8, the Will Ospreay-Rey Fenix match gained viewers in both. It gained 11,000 viewers in the demo, and it gained 8,000 viewers in total viewers. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that it gained more viewers in the younger demos than it did with the over 50s. Because it gained 11,000 viewers in the demo, but only 8,000 viewers overall. So a bunch of people left the show during quarter hour 7, and then younger viewers came back for the main event, which that quarter hour went up against halftime of the NBA game. So that's a good sign that people who were watching the NBA game said, you know what, I'm going to switch over and watch the Dynamite main event.
Right.
And the people who left the show quarter hour 7 made it a point to come back and watch the main event.
Right. I was one of those people who was watching the NBA game the whole time, and then once Ospreay and Phoenix hit the ring, I switched over.
Yeah, and then the only thing that was weird on this entire chart is the overrun went down, and normally the overrun goes up. But the overrun is when the third quarter of the game came back. So what happened was, I think people went back to the NBA game when the halftime was over. One good sign for AEW is last week, Strickland was in the main event. This week, Ospreay was in quarter hour 8. And both weeks, quarter hour 8 improved.
Yeah.
Now look, neither match did like blow away ratings or anything like that. Neither match had this giant spike. But both matches grew from the prior quarter hour. Okay? Which to me is an encouraging sign for the Forbidden Door main event. Because people last week were interested in Swerve against Roderick Strong, who was not the strongest opponent, no pun intended. And people were interested in Will Ospreay against Phoenix. I guess he would be a slightly stronger opponent than Roderick because I don't know. Neither one of them are draws. But the point is, a lot of times quarter hour 8 loses viewership. And the last 2 weeks, both of those quarter hours gained viewership, which I think is a decent sign for the main event of Forbidden Door, which again, I broke that fucking match down from every conceivable angle on the TV review this week. Fair. I gave you the positives and negatives. I'm going with either guy. I gave you the positives and negatives of different directions they can take with each guy, depending on which one win. You won't find a more comprehensive breakdown of that than you will on the review this week. And anyway, that was Dynamite rating. The only other ratings, real quick, I'm not going to do the full ratings like I had the last 2 weeks. Rampage did 256 and a 0.09. Nearly identical numbers to the week before. Here's the difference. It was back in its normal time slot. And it only did 256,000 viewers. And you know what? AEW, Tony Khan deserve everything they get with that shit show that he put on Friday night. Who would watch that? I could understand why nobody fucking watched
I did not.
Okay?
I've been a rampager for a little bit here. I did not watch last week's show.
Mina Shirakawa versus Serena Deeb. That's your main event. Pentagon versus The Butcher in the real main event slot, the opener. We all know the opener is the real main event slot for Rampage. Those are terrible matches. And then 3 squashes. Pentagon versus The Butcher, which was awful, by the way. The Butcher's another one. Count the clock down on that one. You know, come on. I've seen enough of him. And you know Pentagon, listen. If he's got the wrong opponent, he can be the shits.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some real bad Pentagon matches.
And that was the wrong opponent. And then you give us Mina Shirakawa versus, I mean, come on. That show deserved every bit of the 256,000.09. Now, the .09 is not that bad, actually, in that time slot. But, you know, they did record low numbers the week before because they were on 6:30 in the afternoon. You know, Tony Khan he for whatever reason, why would you not, when it comes to Rampage and Collision, put your best foot forward? I will never understand it. Why don't you want people to watch your shows? It doesn't make sense to me. You have to know that lineup is not going to draw anything with those 2 matches as your featured matches. And then a Bang Bang Gang and Acclaimed squash. And Gates of Agony versus Private Party. I mean, come on, that's a hard watch even for a hardcore fan. I mean, that show stunk, and they deserve that lousy rating that they did. And the only other one I want to bring up is Raw. What do I talk about every week? It was down again, down 4% in total viewership and down 6% in the demo. And no one's talking about this. Rich, let me throw something at you, and we'll do another topic. Cody's title reign. Now, I don't want to go too crazy about it. This isn't exactly a red-hot title run.
It's not.
Raw is down every week from the week prior to the point where Raw is going to be touching 1.5 million soon. Okay? And they put Cody on NXT, and he meant nothing.
He meant nothing, yeah.
NXT did 718 and a .22. Last week, NXT did 768 and a .22. Less people watched the NXT with Cody. And they did the same demo number. Now, listen, again, I'm not going to sit here and go crazy and tell you Cody is a failure. We need to change the title. But I ask you, Rich Craich, does this feel like a hot title reign to you?
Definitely does not.
Yours.
Definitely does not. And you know, the year-to-year change, you know, overall viewership. I mean, demo's okay. Demo's, you know, the change is minimal. I think it's up maybe slightly in the demo, but you know, for overall viewership, you know, their percentages are pretty. I think I don't have it in front of me. I'll try to see if I get it. But no, it's been kind of eye-opening a little bit ever since the Cody, you know, the title switch, and after WrestleMania, it feels like a lot of people have either just kind of slowly tuned out or aren't really as red hot with the product as they were. Obviously around WrestleMania, and this happens a lot. You know, that post, you know, WrestleMania, once we get into the summer, that things slow down a little bit. But the fact that they're slowing down as quickly as they are is certainly notable, especially with, you know, giving Cody this big stamp, and he's the guy who beat Roman, and the whole story was, you know, and it does feel like you said, if you had to ask somebody, I don't know that anybody could with a straight face tell you that this title reign feels hot. Like, even if you don't want to argue about the numbers or whatever, all that sort of stuff, if you ask even your most hardcore, you know, WWE fan, do you think this Cody Rhodes run is hot right now? I can't. I mean, I wouldn't believe you if you said yes. You know, I don't think you'd be honest with yourself in that. And yeah, he's doing stuff with AJ Styles, he's doing stuff like that, but it just doesn't. Yeah, it does not feel like there's a whole lot of juice to it right now.
I mean, it does. It just doesn't. I mean, I'm looking at the quarter hours on Raw. You know, and again, I don't want to get too crazy with it. You don't want to get. I don't even think he was up. Was he even on Raw this week? I don't want to get bogged down.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But you know, it's just, you know, Raw every week, and a lot of these weeks, Raw isn't going up against sports anymore either. So you can't even use that as the excuse. This week they didn't go up against anything. Right? So I know some of these weeks they didn't go up against anything. And, you know, I don't know. It doesn't feel like the red hot company that it kind of felt like before. And again, like you say, there's always that post WrestleMania malaise that takes part. But him going to NXT and doing less viewers to me was kind of eye opening. That was kind of that was shocking to me. But we got to move on. We got other stuff to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about actually. So let's get into it because lot of other wrestling going on in the world. Let's start with WWE. We'll cover all the WWE stuff real quick here. Battleground, NXT Battleground this weekend, or last weekend, I should say, from the UFC Apex arena. What do you think about the location of the UFC Apex? It was I think it was slightly more than they usually get at the Performance Center. I don't know if I don't recall the exact numbers, but I kind of looked the same. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the setup was anything. I saw some people really breaking it down and talking about it. I don't know. It just kind of looked like studio wrestling to me, which I don't mind studio wrestling. I have no problem with it. But I didn't think it was like this amazing venue that they now need to just make sure that all their shows are at. It was fine. It didn't look that much different than the Performance Center. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like another kind of standard small arena.
I don't know. I thought it had. Yeah, I guess you're right from that standpoint. If you're going to phrase it that way, then yeah, did it look drastically different from the Performance Center? No, it did not. But I'm curious what the AEW residency is going to look like. I would think something similar, right? So, I don't know. I don't have any hot takes on the UFC.
I really didn't have much either. So let's start with the main event.
Trying to think of a hot take. I don't.
Nah, you don't have to have one. There's no hot take. It was just kind of a normal ass arena. Let's start with the main event because I got some takes on this one. Trick Williams versus Ethan Page. Trick Williams retains the WWE NXT title, defeating Ethan Page 12 minutes and 12 seconds. What did you think of Ethan Page's NXT debut? Obviously, a lot of hype coming in. Comes in as the big surprise. Comes in and immediately gets an NXT title match. I mean, there was a lot of buzz and a lot of hype about it. And I don't know. I thought he had an Ethan Page match here in the main event. I was not wowed at all by Ethan Page in the main event of Battleground.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about Ethan Page. By the way, SmackDown this week. Also down, as people are noting. Cody's been mostly on SmackDown lately. Right. SmackDown was down 6% and in total viewership, and I think 6% in the down 4% total viewership and down 6% in the demo this week as well. So but SmackDown's been up and down for sure. It hasn't been like Raw, which has basically just been down every single week. And maybe because Cody's almost never on it. That could be the reason. But anyway, Ethan Page. This fucking guy. Look, he is who we thought he was, right? I mean, that's my take on Ethan Page. I was really hard on Ethan Page in the run up to this show on a lot of my audios because I was astounded that these WWE fans were super excited about Ethan Page coming in. And it's like, have they seen this guy wrestle? Ethan Page, is going to do what Ethan Page always does and underwhelm. And that's exactly what he did. Ethan Page is a guy who, this is the biggest match of his life. Would you agree with that premise that this was the biggest match of his life?
Of course. Yeah.
He jumps
obviously.
to NXT. Yeah, he jumps to NXT and he's got all kinds of hype behind him because anything, their fans are just, everything's over in that company right now. And he's got this huge opportunity. He feels hotter than he's ever felt in his life in any other company. I think that's incredibly safe to say. You would think that Ethan Page would see this as an opportunity to quiet the doubters, to finally take his career to the next level. He's a guy with size, look, he can talk. Ethan Page has it all. On paper, he's the total package, and he can work competently enough. And when you can talk and you have a great look and you have all that size, as long as you're competent in the ring, you can get by with that, okay? And he's not a bad worker. He doesn't blow your doors off, but he's competent. There's no reason that guy shouldn't be a star. And for whatever reason, we've talked about it for years now. He never gets over the hump. And this match was this was exhibit A in the Ethan Page experience. The guy just doesn't have the fire. He should have approached this match like it was the most important match of his life. Because it was. It was. Like it was the biggest match of his life. Because it was. Like it was an opportunity to show the world, this is what I could be. To show Tony Khan, you should have pushed me. To show TNA, you should have pushed me. To show all these promoters who he feels have done him wrong and didn't give him the proper opportunities. This is who I could have been. Look what happens when I get the chance. And what did he do? He went out there and had a 3-star special.
Yep, a 12-minute Ethan Page match. You've seen this match. You have seen this exact same professional wrestling match 10,000 times in your life. It was just a bog standard, paint by numbers, professional wrestling match on any indie show, any major show, just nothing happening. The crowd was into it because they're into Trick, but the work itself was just, I mean, it was, nothing. Just nothing to it.
This is the Ethan Page experience.
Yeah.
Ethan Page will always underwhelm you. Ethan Page will always let you down. Ethan Page is who he is. Ethan Page, to steal a phrase from Dennis Green, he is who he thought he was. He is exactly who we thought he was. A guy who never puts it into that next gear and shows the world this is a guy. He just doesn't have it in him. He isn't that guy. And I don't know if it's because he doesn't have that drive. I don't know if it's just because he's just not that talented. I don't know what it is with him. But how many more chances are we going to give this guy? How many more times do we have to listen to people tell us how great Ethan Page can be? Stop. I don't care how many scoops he gives you. He's not that guy.
Well, and
he shows us every time.
That's a big problem.
Okay? I understand he's a nice guy. I understand that everybody likes him. Everyone in the business have nothing but great things to say. I remember when, there was an indie wrestler who someone destroyed his gimmick, and Ethan Page was like, I'll buy you another gimmick.
Oh, no, he's a great dude.
I've
heard
guy.
Everyone's always said he's a great dude, yeah.
And the wrestlers love him, and the people in the media like him, and I even dropped in our DMs a couple times. I was like, hey, and he's a nice guy, but I gotta call it like it is. The guy just doesn't have it, and people thought I was being hard on him last week, but this is the
experience. Yeah, he's solid.
This is it.
He's very good. Like, he's not a bad wrestler. He's a good wrestler, but he apparently just does not have the ability to be great. That next level up.
It's not in him. It's just not in him. He can't, because if he couldn't. Now listen, I understand he's in there working with Trick Williams, who's green as grass, and
Page has been doing this for a decade plus, man. That you can work with a guy like that. If you can't work with that charisma explosion that is Trick Williams, you got to find a way, man. You know what I mean? Like,
did Ilya Dragunov have a problem with it?
No, I think Ilya Dragunov figured out how to have a great match with Trick Williams. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, there you go.
He's been wrestling. Page has been wrestling since I don't know, 2007. I think is when he debuted him. He's been wrestling for a very, very long time. You can have a good match with Trick Williams.
Yeah, I mean, this was a 12-minute nothing match. Bog standard, training school match.
Right.
Of
they
course,
went through a table. They went through it.
They worked exactly.
They did the fake table spot to try to get the crowd to get excited for a little bit, and the crowd was into Trick, like I said, but they were not into the match. The crowd didn't give a fuck about the match at all.
Training school match where they worked in the requisite WWE table spot. That's what this was. Flat finish. You think a guy with Page's experience, I'm going to be harder on him than Trick. Trick's a rookie. We all know Trick's limitations. Okay? We all know Trick's limitations. Aside from the dummies in Dave Meltzer's mentions who don't understand what they're talking about, we all understand. People who know ball know where Trick is right now. Okay? And people have heard us do nothing but wax poetic on Trick. But we know where he's at right now as a performer and a wrestler.
Yeah.
And Ethan Page, he was leading that dance. You're telling me he couldn't come up with a more exciting finish than the one we got? That finish was flat as fuck.
Yeah, if people didn't see it, Ethan Page is arguing with the referee, and then he turns around and then Trick hits him from behind with his move or whatever. His little running knee thing.
And the crowd wasn't ready for the finish. No. And here's the other thing too. I've watched this 4 times, so nobody can dispute this. Okay. Ethan Page comes out. He didn't get any kind of
it was reaction. Crickets.
And what does that tell you? That maybe we're all fools. Maybe we're all fools for falling for Twitter on this one. Because the Twitter WWE fan is a different kind of species. They're playing the tribal game. They're playing they got something their team did. Maybe we fell for that because he didn't come across as this red hot guy who was super over like he did on social media over the last couple of weeks since he showed up as a surprise in that building. They didn't really care that much about him in the building. So, and the match didn't have any kind of incredible heat. They did their Trick chants because that's what that crowd does.
Oh yeah. I mean, and they went crazy for Trick when he came out, and then obviously did.
Well, they love Trick.
Yeah,
they love Trick, and that crowd. The thing about that crowd, and they do make for a good atmosphere, so I don't want to pick on it too much, but you don't earn it in front of that crowd. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh, no.
Not,
that women's opener, they did like 2 moves, and we got a "This is awesome" chant like a minute in, and I was like, "Fucking, let's chill out, man. Come on."
That crowd's there to have a good time and have fun, and it does make the matches better, but you're not earning. That's not a crowd where you have to earn. They're not sitting there arms folded saying, "Show me." That crowd is just ready to do their chants, and no matter what. They're there to have a good time and enjoy the show. That NXT crowd has always been like that, going all the way back to Full Sail, Black and Gold, going back to the Dusty Rhodes era. That's just a different kind of crowd. So Trick got his because they like Trick. They love Trick. I didn't think Page was especially over. And he went out there and he gave us the Ethan Page experience.
Yeah.
That's Ethan Page. Don't stop being fooled by this guy. He don't have the fire in the belly. He doesn't have that thing that other guys have where they'll die to get over it. That's not him. And again, I don't know if that's just sometimes athletes are the same way. Some guys just have that Michael Jordan who will fucking dunk on his mother, kind of mentality. And then there's other guys like Anthony Rendon who are like, I don't know. This is my job. This is good enough. I can make my money. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's him. But we have to stop, not we, because we were never fooled, but people have to stop falling for this with him. This is who he is. And I think that segment on NXT where he was out there with the parade of Jags, Sean Spears and Ethan Page and Brian Pillman Jr. And I don't even think it's fair to compare those two guys to Pillman because Pillman just stinks. Those other two guys are fine. The other two guys are fine. But how much did NXT embarrass themselves by putting together that segment like it was some kind of dunk on AEW? Those are like
you can have those guys, man. Other than Cody. Obviously, Cody's the big one, but you can have all 3 of those other dudes, man.
Honest to God, when those 3 guys were with AEW and you would have polled AEW fans, they would have come up in a lot of answers of who would you like to no longer be in the company. You would have gotten those 3 guys as answers. No one cares about those guys. And I like Sean Spears more than most people. I'm
a pro Spears guy. I would be able to do something with Spears. There is something for sure that I could do with Sean Spears in my wrestling company.
He's a decent guy to have on your roster.
Right. But again, polling AEW fans, most of them fucking hated him and wanted him to go away.
And wanted him gone. And here's the other thing, too. As much as I defend Sean Spears and think he's a decent guy to have on your roster, I don't think he's any kind of loss if he leaves your roster.
Oh, God, no.
You know what I mean? And it's like, and Pillman, he's just, forget him. He's just completely useless. He would, let's be honest, he wouldn't have any of these jobs if he wasn't Pillman's kid.
Right.
We all know that. We all know he's not talented enough. So they roll out this parade of geeks and have Cody endorse them as, oh, you're in a good place. I mean, come on, that was embarrassing. That's embarrassing to do that because those 3 guys are non-entities. I don't know how they can watch the Page match and think, oh, he'll never get pushed again. They're not going to push him after that performance, that flat 2 3/4 star match that he had. You know the funniest thing about that match? Let me check. The last time I checked on Cage Match.
Oh, even the Cage Match inmates can't even lie to themselves that it was good. It's like a 6.4 or something like that.
Hold on, I got it right here. So, it's down to 6.21.
Yeah, I mean, even they can't pretend they like it.
And if you know anything about Cage Match in NXT,
the rest of the show, look at the rest of the show.
They basically, as we said many times, it's an 8 to 10 scale. It's basically they go on an 8 to 10 scale. And they're not even pretending that match was any good. It wasn't bad. Rich, the match just existed. So anyway, that's enough beating up on Ethan Page. I guess we should go over the rest of the card. You got anything else on Ethan Page, or should we lay low on him now? I mean, we beat him up pretty good here.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, it is what it was. But yeah, Trick got the big win there, and he moves on. I'll go Roxanne Perez and Jordynne Grace. The other big news from this show, obviously, Jordynne Grace coming into NXT as the TNA Knockouts champion, facing Roxanne Perez, losing to Roxanne Perez. You also had Ash by Elegance / Dana Brooke do an interference spot. There's a lot of weird stuff here. I thought the match itself was fine. I don't know. I saw some people that really loved it. I don't know. Did you think this was any good or any great shakes? I thought it was a perfectly okay, fine match. I'll never remember this. I'll never talk about or think about this match ever again once I was done watching it.
I thought it was the best Roxanne Perez match that she's had in NXT with a horrible finish. That's what I thought.
Yeah, the finish was brutal.
This was way better than Roxanne Perez's usual bullshit. Weapons wild,
well, yeah,
and all this other garbage that they have her doing.
That's damn it with faint praise. That's some pretty faint praise there. But you're right. You're right. It probably is better.
It was the best match she's had in NXT. I do believe that, and it was trending to be an excellent match. But the finish was preposterous because they had to protect Jordynne Grace. They had to protect the TNA champion. So they had one of their spooky girls come out, Tatum Paxley.
Yeah, Tatum Paxley was going to come out, but then Ash by Elegance. They did that on commentary. And I was just like, oh, God.
Well, yeah, because they have to. That was on purpose because.
No, I know.
No, but I want to explain. So they wanted the NXT audience to know that it was Dana Brooke. You know what I mean? They wanted to, because it's the subtlety hammer.
Right. That's Dana Brooke.
So they wanted
Ash by Elegance. Is what they did on.
Right. So what they did was they had Tatum Paxley steal Jordynne Grace's belt, and then Ash by Elegance, who's coming after the belt on Impact, came out to fight Paxley over the title, and then Grace went out to get her own belt back, but then she gave them both belt shots. And then just threw the title on the ground. It's like, I don't know. That stuff's always weird to me. Like the champion is not respecting the title belt because she went and gave them both belt shots and then just tossed it on the ground. And it's like, well, then what do you care if they run off with it? Like what? I don't know. But and that was their out because then when she got back in the ring, Roxanne took advantage of that and beat her. So they had to come up with a finish that protected the promotional partner and the other champion, and that's what they chose to go with. Now, Grace, I think, has a mystery opponent for the pay-per-view, if I'm not mistaken.
She does. A lot of people are insinuating somebody we talked about a little bit earlier, possibly Natalya. She's making some tweets, and she's got capitalizations and all that sort of stuff, so who knows? Maybe she's...
Who's doing that, Natalya?
Grace is. Grace has a tweet where she's capitalizing Natalya, basically, if you read it backwards.
Well, then that means it's definitely not Natalya. So what I think it is, it's going to be that's why it's going to be Tatum Paxley and then I bet you they do a 3-way. I bet you it's going to be Paxley and Ash by Elegance. That way, Grace can beat Ash and they protect the WWE wrestler.
Too. Yeah, Paxley can be protected too.
Right, because WWE isn't going to want their wrestler
This is why interpromotional stuff, people lose their fucking minds about interpromotional stuff. I don't, because this is what happens. Nobody wants to lose, and you got to do all this weird, we got to protect. I'd rather just people face people that are in their company, and they can win and they can lose, and that I would much prefer that over this weird walking on eggshells when you book somebody from another company thing.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to shoot this angle on the TakeOver show, then she'll probably face them both on the Impact show, and it's going to be hilarious if what Impact gets out of this is a Tatum Paxley match.
That's probably what they're going to
get. Because it's WWE and they have the high ground. They're not going to do a lot for Impact.
No.
But did you see how funny it was how at the TV this week, WWE used their little, their media people who pretend that they're fucking Walter Cronkite. We all know who I'm talking about. There's a lot of word that WWE is interested in people like Ali, Mustafa Ali, and like all these.
And Zachary Wentz. It said, the exact tweet was essentially like, we were told that NXT representatives were impressed by Mustafa Ali and Zachary Wentz. Oh, gee, you think?
What kind? I mean, who told you that? It's like
it's the NXT guys back there like, this Ali guy could work. It's like, oh, really? You think?
Right.
You
knowing damn well they're not there, and
right.
it's in hopes that that spreads, and then people go, oh, I'm gonna watch NXT this week because Ali might show up. You know what I mean? And then Ali doesn't show up. Ali definitely doesn't show up. Here's what happens. Tatum Paxley goes to Impact, and nobody cares.
Right.
And there's all this talk like, oh, the Impact ratings Impact has been finishing outside the top 150 on Thursday nights, which is brutal. It means they're doing like maybe a 0.0. The cutoff is usually like 0.02 or something, or 0.01. And so this is doing nothing for Impact.
Did you see that Impact is now available on their streaming service too? You can get it on Access if you want, but it's also available to stream on TNA Plus if you want to not watch on Access.
Well, sure. I mean, it's all the same company, so they don't. You know what I mean?
Right.
They rather you subscribe to the TNA Plus or get your hooks in you for TNA Plus, and it's like. My point here is it's doing nothing for TNA, and because they haven't sent anybody there. Now, I'm sure they'll send over your Tatum Paxleys of the world and everything, and it won't make any difference. And it's like when AEW had a partnership, they sent over Kenny Omega. He was on the show every week.
Well, that partnership was bad.
On
no, that partnership was bad, though, Joe, even though they got their best ratings and sold their most pay-per-views, but that was bad. But this one, good.
They did record pay-per-view numbers under the Anthem banner with Kenny Omega on the shows. And they were doing the best 18 to 49 that they've ever done on Access because Kenny Omega.
Because it's Kenny Omega.
I was tracking that every week. I was tracking those ratings every week along with WrestleNomics, okay, on the TV reviews. Go back and listen. Okay? That actually did do something for Impact. Now, unfortunately, those AEW fans left as soon as Kenny Omega left. They didn't stick around for Christian Cage. So it didn't really help them long term. I mean, that's true. But they came when Kenny was there, and they were interested when Kenny was there. They bought pay-per-views when Kenny was there. They watched the damn show when Kenny was there. No one's watching Impact due to this. It's doing nothing for them. You got to send stars. They haven't sent anyone. So I don't know what else is going to happen here. Maybe Tatum Paxley will go over there. That'll mean less than nothing. No one gives a shit about Tatum Paxley. But, nothing happened on TV. There were no more TNA wrestlers. Now the big talk, Rich, and this is what the kicker. Now the big talk is Joe Hendry might show up.
Oh, man. I can't wait for the people that never watched Joe Henry to pretend that Joe Henry's a great wrestler and not just a meme. Oh, yeah. That's going to be great.
If you thought Ethan Page was a jag, wait till you get a load of Joe Hendry. Okay? So we're like just going right down the line. We've gone from LA Knight to Ethan Page to Joe Hendry. I don't know what's now. Like, who could be next? In this
Who's
collection
jaggier?
of fucking...
Who's jaggier than those guys, man? Those might be the that might be an all-timer.
Now, I like Joe Hendry's act.
Yes, the gimmick is great. The meme is great. We get it. But man, once that bell rings,
he appears.
Once that bell rings, though, ding, ding, ding.
And the bell rings.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, it's not always great.
So we get to do this all over again, where the WWE fans get excited about Joe Hendry.
They've never once watched a Joe Hendry match.
Not one time. Not one time. So get ready for that. We get to do that all over again.
Yeah, who's jaggier on the Impact roster, TNA roster?
Cutler. Just start naming one of the Brams. Is there any Brams left?
I don't think there's any Bram. I think all the Brams are gone. Yeah.
Send a Bram. Send a Gunner. Are there any Gunners left?
There's not a Gunner. No, I think he's gone too.
Send a Gunner.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who's jaggier. I mean, that might be it.
Brian Myers.
Maybe they'll send Khan over. the aforementioned Khan.
Send Khan.
Send Khan over. Yeah.
Just send the guy with a beard and call him Bram.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Sam McCallahan doing another run as a hacker sounds great to me. Go for it. Why not?
He's not there anymore.
Yeah. Oh, he's not, I guess. No, he's back again.
MLW. Oh, he's
I don't
back?
know.
Okay.
I don't know if he's back. I actually don't know that.
I don't know either.
I'm just making up guys that Shira, Malabala Shira, he's got to still be there, right?
He's in and out. I don't think he's there anymore. You can do the Shira shuffle.
Yeah, right.
You can do the
right.
Shira shuffle.
Right.
I'm doing it right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, of
with
course.
the
I am
finger.
too. Yeah, I'm trying to think of,
I'm doing it.
yeah. Just like Dixie did. I love the Shira shuffle. Because I'm thinking of a guy that's like kind of a meme, but then can't, once the bell rings, kind of in the Joe Henry, the Joe Henry, yeah, that's, I like that one. Yeah. Maybe Tasha Steeles. You can send, I'm trying to think of who's, because they got a lot of Jag women. Heavy
swipe at Tasha Steeles. Jeez.
Well,
I don't think she's any good either, but let's go through this NXT show.
Let's do it. Yeah, real quick. Yeah, we're running out of time here. All right. Let's go back to the opener, and then we'll work our way through the rest of the show here. Okay. NXT Women's North American Title 6-way ladder match. Kalani Jordan beats Fallon Henley, Jada Parker, Lash Legend, Michin, and Sol Ruka. Man, this was a whole lot of spots. It was a lot of, I'm going to set up a ladder, and then we're going to do a spot, and then you're going to do a spot. It wasn't as much of a disaster as I thought it was going to be, but it was the most very clearly choreographed ladder match you've ever seen in your life, in terms of like every spot was like, okay. Like you knew they rehearsed this match 1,000 times, where everybody knew exactly where to be at the exact right time. There was nothing organic, nothing natural. Everything was just choreographed and laid out and plotted out. With that said, was not a complete disaster. I don't believe anybody tore an ACL, so that's good, but I thought this was the shits, and I have no use for I have no use for good ladder matches anymore. I especially don't have use for bad ladder matches like this was.
So under 2.5 hit with the torn ACL.
I think so. Yeah, so far and we don't know. I mean, obviously reports could come out, but I don't think so. I think you maybe hold on to your ticket, but I don't think it's going to hit. I don't think it's going to hit.
All right, so I didn't think it was bad. In fact, I didn't even think this show was bad. Normally, I come on here with these NXT pay-per-views.
No, I actually like this show. Regardless of the two matches that I just buried before, it's going to get a lot better in the weirdest ways possible.
I think I always lose my mind when we do these NXT pay-per-views because I think they're among the worst pieces of shit that I've ever seen in my life. Like that Halloween Havoc show a few years ago. I mean, I didn't even really think this show was bad. Here's the problem, though, and this match was a good encapsulation of it. This match was fine. I don't think this match was bad, but like you said, heavily choreographed and all those things. And the one thing with this match that just jumped through the screen, it's just soulless. NXT is just soulless. You know, these are like artificially produced, factory created specimens posing as wrestlers. There's no soul behind any of them. They're all playing a cartoonish character. They're all so fake in all the worst ways. You don't feel any authenticity at all.
Yeah, Kalani Jordan. People. Like, do you believe in Kalani Jordan and like the ethos of Kalani Jordan? You don't.
I think Sol Ruka and Kalani Jordan both legitimately have upside.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
It's just so plastic. Everything's so plastic and manufactured, and soulless is the best word to describe NXT. Fallon Henley and Jada Parker and Lash Legend, they're going to be trivia questions. They're going nowhere. They're not going to be anything in this business.
Now, Lash is bad. Lash is very bad.
I'd be very surprised. I mean, they're just soulless entities that they're not. I don't even consider a lot of these people pro wrestlers. I don't know what they are. They're trying to create these television stars who can mimic what pro wrestlers do when the bell rings. Does that make any sense?
Yes. They're like, it's like hot actors and actresses playing professional wrestlers on this TV show about pro wrestling.
And doing it in a very choreographed, artificial, performative, fake way. It's just soulless. Soulless is the word I keep coming back to. This match was soulless. For all of the, heavily practiced spots that they did that looked quote unquote good, none of it had any soul or feeling behind it or authenticity. None of these people come across like pro wrestlers. And that's the problem with both this match and pretty much NXT on a week in, week out basis. So Kalani Jordan wins, and I do think there's some upside there. And I'm a fan of Sol Ruka. I think she's incredible. I mean, she's just the things that she can do.
Yeah, she's super athletic. that flippy do cutter thing or whatever. Again, it's like it's cool, but it's also like completely absurd.
Does she need to do the soul snatcher like 4 times in a row?
Right.
Like save it for one big spot. You know what I mean? It's like, I think she calls it the soul snatcher. Let's just go with that.
I'm going to go with that. I like it. If not, I like it.
It should be the soul snatcher. If it's not not snatcher. It should be the soul snatcher.
Snatcher.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, and Mishin was there to direct traffic, and like we said, she would be. And I don't know. It was a fine, soulless ladder match where you get to see Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka, who have a chance to be stars. Anyway, let's move on.
Yep. Then we had a match I loved. I loved this match. Axiom and Nathan Frazer. Frazer. I always call him Frazier. Defeat the OC.
Like he's Kelsey Grammer.
Right. Against the OC, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. I cannot believe I'm telling you this. The OC, I loved them in this match. They were great. And this was just you talked about a night where there was no soul to any of the wrestling. This match had soul. This match had something to it because it was just a classic old school professional wrestling match. You have the veterans in Anderson and Gallows. You have the young hot high flyers in Axiom and Nathan Frazer. It was and I don't know, it was worked in a perfectly reasonable style. You know what I mean? The OC just kind of slowly, methodically working the fast guys over. The fast guys trying to get hot tags so they can get in and out. I don't know. It was just like in a show that's so plastic and so fake. It was just great to be like, oh my God, this is a professional wrestling match. Just like a real ass professional wrestling match. And I thought this was good. This is probably my favorite match of the entire night, believe it or not. I thought this was good.
So you stole my hot take. This was my match of the night. I thought this was by far the best match on the show.
It was so good. People aren't going to believe because people are not going to believe that we're saying this, but it's true.
I don't think it was a great match. But I thought it was a professional wrestling match with 4 professional wrestlers. In my notes, it says, quote, "This, unlike the rest of NXT, felt like actual wrestling. Not artificially produced, factory-created specimens posing as pro wrestlers. Good match," end quote. That's what I wrote in my notes. Because these are 4 people who didn't come from this pathetic fucking performance center. I don't know what the hell they're doing, because nobody feels like an actual pro wrestler coming out of this thing, and that's probably by design. And this felt like a good, solid pro wrestling match with 4 people who know what they're doing.
With a good story, with a good basic story. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you got the old,
this was the
big
most
veterans.
Luke Gallows was in years.
I know the Luke Gallows. I was like, what is going on? I kind of like wiped my eyes, like a cartoon style, like to make sure my eyes were seeing it. Gallows is taking bumps and going here and going there and doing drop downs. I'm like, what the fuck got into Luke Gallows? This is. And Anderson, he's when he wants to be, he can be solid.
When Anderson Anderson's a pro's pro. And when Luke Gallows wants to be, he is a pro's pro. And Axiom, A-Kid, was a breakout indie guy in 2019 or whatever. And we all knew what the upside he had. And Nathan Frazer was legitimately the hottest prospect in wrestling at one point. And the object of a bidding war. And that's real. That's a fact. That WWE won. Because he's indebted to Seth Rollins. He trained with Seth Rollins. He trained at the Black and the Brave school. And, he chose WWE because, in large part because of Seth Rollins, which is fine. And this was professional wrestlers having a professional wrestling match. And it just felt so fucking different.
Yeah.
Than everything else on NXT.
The speed,
it just jumps off the page.
It's very obvious when you watch a show like this. It is so obvious the difference between the plasticky, fake, rehearsed
these guys and Fallon Henley doing whatever the fuck it is she does. I mean, it's just such a difference, And I think in large part that's why this show wasn't that bad, because you had a lot of guys like that on this show. Look at the next match. Shayna Baszler brings a different kind of credibility to things. She's a solid pro. Now, I had a lot of problems with this match because if you're going to do this NXT Underground gimmick, okay, they can't help themselves in NXT. Shawn Michaels sucks so bad. He can't help himself but to just over gimmick everything and make it corny. This could have been cool as fuck. You had two people with a legitimate MMA background. Shayna Baszler is a legitimate ass kicker who people take seriously. Okay. You have Lola Vice, who is going to get the rub.
Yeah, she did Bellator and stuff too.
Right. And she could get the rub from being in there with Baszler and beating her. But what do? They bring out a parade of geeks, all dressed in black, to stand around the ring and slap on the mat. Right? That's mistake number one. They turn the fucking lights off so you can't see anything, which didn't add to the atmosphere. It was just like, I can't fucking see anything. And then with the ropes off, they're biting off a blood sport and they're biting off, and then with the ropes off, right? You'd think they're just going to have this hard physical, faux MMA match or whatever. But no, they still have to WWE it up and go outside the ring and do table spots.
They're fighting on the tables. Yeah, they're fighting on the tables
floor.
And brawling through the crowd and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So what the fuck did we do the underground? Why didn't we just have a submission match in that case? And why did we do the underground thing if we're just going to do all the shit that we do in every other match? So I thought this was a fucking mess. Then we're doing submission holds over the edge of the apron, and it's just so stupid. Either commit to the bit or don't do it at all. So even this had to have all of the cornball NXT feel around it. They can't just... NXT is just incapable of being pro wrestling.
No,
and again,
can't.
that's probably by design. It is by design. They don't want to be pro wrestling. They want to be this cartoonish reality show, fucking Love Island, in a pro wrestling atmosphere, fucking bullshit and it's infuriating. But, I hated this match. But overall, I didn't think this was one of the better NXT pay-per-views. I guess we got one more match left. Right?
Yeah. I thought this match it was two people that didn't want to actually hit each other, but have fighting backgrounds. We talked about that with Grant Akuma. I talked about it with Grant Akuma when he came when he guested on the show a couple months ago. That guys with legit shoot backgrounds being told to have a match where they're fake shooting doesn't work very well, because it's very hard to shut your brain off and say, oh, I need to make my punches look like how I made them look, but I got to not hit the other person. And that's what I felt in this match. It was like these very light clubbing strikes, because both these people didn't want to hurt the other person because they know that they have actual fight backgrounds, can actually knock somebody out and do sort of stuff. So it felt very light and very airy, a lot of the stuff that they did. And then, like you said, it was just fucking dark and they're hitting each other on the table. Yeah, I thought this was the shits. I did not like this match.
I didn't like it. It lost me. At one point it lost me, and I was like, I don't want to watch this. This sucks. Obafemi.
I like this. This match was good.
Beats Joe Coffey and Wesley. I thought it got stupid at the end when Gallus came out. And
well, yeah. Yeah.
They did the dopey camera angle where they showed Obafemi rising up like the creature from the Black Lagoon, like some old horror movie shot where he's like rising up in the fucking horizon, right? Like the whole dramatic shot. And then he throws their heads into the apron like it's 1984, and they sell it like the cartoon selling of the two Gallus guys, and then he gets in the ring and he wins. I don't know. Obafemi has all the upside in the world. I really wish they would just get him in there and let him have matches and not gimmick it up with three-ways and all. Because last time he was in a three-way with Dijak and it's like, why?
He could have just faced Wesley. He could have just faced Wesley and would have gotten over so much, because Wesley was
the big man versus little man.
Yeah, and Wesley was doing a great job of that too, coming off the ropes, doing this, doing that, and Oba kept grabbing him and power arming him, grabbing him and power slamming him, grabbing him and doing that sort of stuff. That was all the spots that mattered. That was all the spots that were important. If the goal is to get Obafemi over, yeah, just have him get in there with Wesley and throw the guy around or whatever. But then, like you said, you had to throw in all his Gallus stuff, and it's like, does anybody want this? Who's asking for this?
Well, they wanted to make Obafemi look like a fucking superhero beating up the
He's a superhero. Look at the guy. Look at the fucking guy. He's a monster. Yeah, but that's WWE, the subtlety hammer, like you said. He can't just overpower one guy. He's got to overpower five guys.
Yeah, we got to have a triple threat match,
right?
And it's I don't know. It's not the kind of development I think I would put these guys through in a developmental, a guy like this, but they just have different ideas about everything. It's just, but by the standards of an NXT show, I really didn't feel like I was being tortured I didn't feel like it was like one of the worst things I was ever watching, which is what a lot of the NXT pay-per-views, that's how they make me feel. I feel like it makes me a lot of times fucking angry watching the NXT shows.
Yeah, this
I
one
get
not so.
angry.
This one not so much.
This
I think
one did make me angry.
it didn't have the growling ring announcer. I think that's an important factor in this.
That is a factor.
Didn't have the growling ring, because like think of how much you did not like Lola Vice and Shayna Baszler. Now increase that by saying the winner of the NXT Underground, Lola Vice. You know, way worse. You know, it's like that.
You know what else? You know what the other big factor was though? And yeah, that is a factor because it's part of the fucking terrible NXT presentation, and it has the worst presentation in all of wrestling. The other thing is, it had Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows and Ethan Fraser and Axiom and Mishin and Shayna Baszler and, you know, Joe Coffey and Wesley and Jordan Grace and Ethan Page and people who are just pro wrestlers. So I think that took a lot of the edge off too, because every match they loaded this show up with people that just, you know, that didn't come from this dopey fucking performance center and know what they're doing. So we didn't have a Weapons Wild match with, you know, Roxanne Perez and some other geek from the PC who don't know how to work with weapons, but we're going to make them work with weapons anyway. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to let them do headshots with the weapons. And the weapons are going to be, you know, the fake plastic WWE weapons, and they're not going to know how to do it's none of that. And you had real workers in there. So I think it mitigated a lot of the annoying things that you normally get on an NXT show. So from that standpoint, not nearly as bad as some of the others.
All right, let's quickly WWE Clash at the Castle here in Scotland. The show is Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles in a WWE title / Universal title I Quit match. World Heavyweight title, Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. Damian Priest, another guy that we have to look at again. These post-WrestleMania, like, lol. You know, Damian Priest is your champion.
Well, well, listen, I don't. They can call him whatever they want. He's not a world champion.
He's the fake champ, yeah. But
nobody takes that seriously.
They're putting that guy as like the head of Raw. They've essentially made it the Raw title. You know what I mean? And
yeah, look at Raw's numbers.
Right.
We just talked about Raw's numbers. This is something you've been talking about. This roster isn't nearly as good as the perception. Where's the stars? Where's the stars on this roster? Damian Priest? Come on now. With his fake world title? And you wonder why Raw's down every week? I mean, you know, so that's a big problem.
Bayley versus Piper Niven. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Do you have anything else on?
No, I didn't have anything important to say. Keep going.
Bayley versus Piper Niven. I mean, come on. What are you doing here? Sami Zayn versus Chad Gable for the IC title, and then a WWE Women's Tag Team title triple threat match. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill defending the titles against Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, and the unholy union of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn.
Yeah, they got a lot of UK people on this show, you know, with Niven and McIntyre, and they got, you know, they dusted the mothballs off Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. Isla Dawn to me is one of the most off-putting, annoying wrestlers in the entire company. I hate her act.
This is really bad. Yeah.
I hate the stupid faces that she makes and everything else. What I would like to see in that opener is Jade Cargill do something other than the same thing she does on every hot tag. That same sequence that she does in every fucking match. I want to see some. Well, is it too much to ask for something new? Is it too much to ask for some progression? Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, I mean, now would be a good time. We're approaching a year. We're getting pretty close.
So, you know, it's not too much to ask. Zayn and Gable, obviously, we talked about that earlier. Bayley versus Piper Niven. If that rocks your boat, good for you.
I mean, what a stupid for all the. I mean, I know AEW gets all the shit for booking matches with no story and blah, 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 all the other bullshit. Suit Williams, who did the preview for VoicesWrestling.com, pointed out perfectly. Piper Niven has not won a match since October.
Yeah, it's nonsense.
But we're just putting her in there because we're in Scotland. So here you go. It's like
we don't even.
And Sue brings up a good point. Wouldn't it be better to have Piper Niven in a match where she, like, in an opening match where she wins and the crowd can go, "Yeah, our hometown person won," as opposed to clearly we know she's going to lose to Bayley. You know what I mean? It's going to be
the thing is, Rich, there's 5 fucking matches on the whole show.
Right.
So
right. There's
5 fucking matches on the whole show. they don't want to fill the buckets, Rich. We don't want to fill buckets.
Those buckets can get too full.
Okay, so look at all the new faces that weren't on the last pay-per-view. You see what's happening here? We're not filling buckets. You can't even do you can't even give Piper Niven like a 3-week fucking push.
Right.
And have
We're
her win
going to
some
put
matches.
Piper Niven in Scotland. We know we have this thing for Scotland. Let's have her do a little mini push, win a couple matches for a week or two or a couple weeks and build it. It's just literally like, yeah, it's Piper Niven. She's Scotland, whatever. Yeah, fuck it. Move on.
Listen, Levesque stinks. I mean, Levesque stinks.
Good. He's not good.
And we're the only ones brave enough to say it.
Yeah,
Levesque stinks.
It's not good booking. It's not.
Okay, they got nothing planned out. It's you knew this show was coming. You should have been building Piper Niven for months. It's not that hard. You knew the show was coming. You should have said, all right, we're gonna have Piper Niven and Drew and Alba Fire and Isla Dawn challenging in fucking Scotland for these titles. You knew this months in advance. He should sit down in the room and say, I want a plan on how we're gonna build these people. They don't do that.
Hell no.
Because this guy is fucking overrated. Levesque is no good. It's the same lazy shit in a non-Kevin Dunn package. So
there's tracking shots now, though, Joe. Come on.
Yeah. It was fine, but then all the dummies go, oh, it's so different now. Oh, it's so different now. How different is it? Piper Niven hasn't won a match since the fucking pandemic. How different is it?
No, it's not true. That she won a match October 16th of 2023. She defeated Natalia. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. She won a match 8 months ago.
And
My
then
bad.
before that, she defeated Nikki Cross in March of 2023, and then she defeated Michin in February of 2023. That was last year, 2023, by the way, all those dates.
So she hasn't won a match this year.
No.
This guy's a genius fucking booker.
She is not. Actually, she won. Sorry, she won tag match because remember she was the briefly the WWE. Oh, that was 2023. Never mind. No, she hasn't won a match this year. I'm sorry, she has not won a match. No. Sorry, her and Chelsea Green defeated Bayley and Naomi on SmackDown in May in a tag match. Yes. Booker of the Year, Paul Levesque, baby. There you go. And the rest of the show just sounds boring as fuck. So it's like, all right, great.
It's not going to be any good. There's going to be a fucking 20 minutes between each match. How can you be excited?
I don't know. We're the only
AJ Styles has no chance. No one cares about Damian Priest.
No.
Or his fake title.
You think they're going to have Drew win it? Or do you think that they're going to screw him again? Or do you think Punk's going to come out and screw him?
No, you can't have Drew win it until Punk's ready to come back.
Right.
Then you have Drew win it. And then it has a chance to not be a fake title anymore if Drew and Punk are feuding over it. Right now, it's a fake title. Nobody thinks Damian Priest is a world champion. No one. No one who has a clue.
No, and he's not even the most important part of his own unit right now. I mean, the biggest story in the group in Judgment Day or whatever is fucking Dom and Liv sexually assaulting Dom Mysterio. That's the top story in the Judgment Day right now.
Yeah, so you've got Levesque with his various race wars and race factions, and they're booking a story where someone basically is sexually assaulting someone else while this lawsuit is going on.
Yes, while
it's amazing.
With a potentially pending indictment, we're doing Liv Morgan is forcing another employee to kiss her.
Yeah, and Dom is like, ooh, yucky, I hate this. Get off of me.
Right.
And they're booking this. Now, look, at the end of the day, is this all a ruse and is Dom going to turn on fucking mommy when she comes back? Of course. So then it's going to be, he was in on it all along. It doesn't change what's happening now, right? And the perception of it, like, they're so brazen. They don't care.
They know no one's going to call them out. We're the only people that are going to call them out on it, so
right.
They don't give a fuck. Yeah.
They don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. And then when Dom turns on mommy, I feel gross just talking
but you
about
got to
this
do
shit.
it. You got to say it, though, to make it even more ridiculous.
Then all their fans go, see, he was in on it all along, so it wasn't really, it was a plan. Well, okay. But you don't know that when you're watching. They just don't. It's crazy how brazen
I just don't think I would do planned or faked sexual assaults while I'm potentially being indicted for sexual assault.
Stay away from that right now. I mean, it's crazy the fucking arrogance that they have. Well, Clap, get into it. I hope you enjoy Clash at the Castle this
Clash at the
weekend,
Castle. We will not be doing instant reaction live for Clash at the Castle. No, I'm not watching it. You won't be up by the time this show starts, man. 10 a.m. on Saturday? That ain't Land's hours.
Come on. If anything's going to get me out of bed, it's Clash at the Castle.
Clash at the Castle.
Clash at the Castle, Scotland. Yes, that's what's going to get me out of bed. No doubt about it. Because I wouldn't miss Bailey versus Piper Niven. I mean, come on. That's a big time match.
That's a big one. Yeah, it's a main event anywhere. Not in Scotland.
Bailey versus Viper. Wasn't she Viper?
Yeah.
In Stardom or whatever the fuck.
Piper
she was the Viper.
Yeah.
Oh, with the Vipers. Yeah, the Viper.
Piper Niven. Dewdrop. Remember when she was Dewdrop?
Yeah.
Dewdrop. Oh my god.
Fucking stupid.
Stupid
company. Stupid waste of fucking time company.
Oh my god.
Goddamn company.
Well, they have an announcement they're doing with NOAH, by the way, this weekend. Teasing a major announcement, them and NOAH at NOAH's Yokohama show. NOAH's saying there will be a joint announcement between the two companies and that a, quote, certain wrestler will also have a message. So, I don't know.
All right, well, I'm going to hold off my opinion until they make that announcement. And not going to say nothing. We'll see if it's something other than Charlie Dempsey this time around. Oh, by the way.
Yeah, everyone's gotten this wrong. Can we please set the record straight on where the fuck Charlie Dempsey went when he went to Japan?
Hold on. Yeah. Let me see what I want to say about this. Mike Johnson is telling people to line up and apologize to him, right? Maybe Mike Johnson can get straight where these people have wrestled and where they come from, because first he claims Reina Dorada as a CMLL wrestler, right? A couple of weeks ago, because he doesn't do any research. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And then this week he claims that Charlie Dempsey had previously wrestled for Pro Wrestling NOAH, which again, Mike Johnson has no clue what he's talking about, can't do 10 seconds of research, but wants everybody to line up and apologize to him with this Ricochet thing that, by the way, everybody ended up agreeing with him on anyway. Where does this guy get off? Okay? Has he apologized or posted a correction for saying Reina Dorada is a CMLL wrestler? Has he done that yet?
Do not believe so.
Has he posted a correction that Charlie Dempsey wrestled for All Japan and not NOAH? Has he done that yet?
Not that I saw. No.
Okay. Well, then who the fuck is he to go on Twitter and start demanding people line up and apologize? For what? What are we apologizing to you for? For what? This guy has I'm so sick of this fucking guy, because Dave Scherer always takes the heat. Okay? But they're two peas in a pod. This motherfucker got more Meltzer envy, and he's had it for 25 years because he's not Dave and he never will be. That's the bottom line for both Scherer and Johnson. They have had Meltzer envy for 25 years, and I've got the copies of the Lariat to prove it. Scherer, where it was nothing but Meltzer envy in 1995, 1996, and it still exists today. Because they'll never be as successful as Dave, because they don't have the talent or the knowledge to be as successful as Dave, no matter how many scoops Tommy Dreamer gives you. Okay? Okay, that's the bottom line. Post the corrections. Okay? Then maybe we'll line up and apologize. Fucking guy. He posts 2 scoops a month. Okay? And again, he's another guy. He's another one of these guys who thinks he's fucking Woodward and fucking Bernstein because he posts 2 scoops a month. No historical context on anything. God knows what you're paying for with that site. What do they do? Besides get shit wrong. Can't even get straight where Charlie Dempsey wrestled. Doesn't know the industry. Okay, so Tommy Dreamer gives him 2 scoops a month. Fucking guy. You know, the balls on this guy. And we all know Cher's a lunatic. Edit the show, Rich.
All right, so we have a lot left to do here. Are we overrunning tonight, or do you got to go?
I ain't got to go nowhere.
I think we're doing an overrun, folks. So, all right. So what we're going to do here is, if you're new to Flagship Patreon and the Flagship, what we're going to do is, if you are listening live right now on the $10 tier, just stick with the show. We are going to mute for a little bit. Joe and I are going to take a minute to do whatever we got to do. I'm going to go to the bathroom, get some water, come back, and then we will start the overrun. Now, if you are a free listener to the free Flagship feed, which you are going to want to do now, if you want to listen to our review of New Japan Dominion, our discussion about the G1 Climax, our discussion about New Japan Soul, Triple Mania Tijuana, you might want to hang around for the Triple Mania Tijuana thing. We're going to do that on the overrun. That'll be on the $5 tier over at flagshippatreon.com. So if you're on the $10 tier listening live right now, do not leave. Just give us a minute. We're going to be on mute, and then we will come back. If you are listening on the free feed, this will end the Flagship here in a couple of moments. And if you want to hear that New Japan and Triple Mania Tijuana stuff, that'll be available on our $5 tier over at flagshippatreon.com. So that is how it's going to work. So, for the live listeners, hang around. And for the free listeners, that's it for us. That is Joe. I'm Rich. And we will talk to you again next time. Take care. Bye.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is, how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling podcasting network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.